Good afternoon. I would like to call to order the March 4th meeting of the Charleston County Board of Zoning Appeals, also known as the BZA. The board members that will hear your case tonight are as follows. My name is William Ray. I'm the chairperson. To my right, we have Mr. Truslow, Mr. Siddell, and Mr. Neal. To my right, we have Mr. Nelson, Mr. Jordan, Mr. Williams, and Ms. Switzer Smalls is walking in. Staff members present tonight are Mr. Anderson, Ms. Sally Brooks, Ms. Clark, Mr. Downey, and Mr. Foster. And to my immediate right, the attorney for the county is Mr. Kevin Hugie. Because the hearing tonight is a public fact-finding meeting, we're in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and South Carolina Code 6-29-70. 15 days prior to the hearing, an announcement was printed in the Post and Courier, a sign was posted on or near the designated properties, and a notice was mailed to the applicants or the applicant's representatives, to the property owners within 300 feet of the property, and to parties of interest. Persons, organizations, and news media have requested declaration of our meeting and also have been notified. Board members, the meeting notes for February 5th, 2024, to the public hearing were emailed to you. Are there any changes? And if not, may I have a motion to approve and a second?
Second.
All right, and we have a second over here with Mr. Jordan. Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. It is unanimous. Thank you. All case rulings from this and any other meeting are available to the public and inspection during normal business hours at the Charleston County Planning and Zoning Department. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body that has final decision-making authority on the following: appeals of a zoning-related decision. The BZA is authorized to hear and decide appeals only on zoning-related matters where it is alleged that it is an error in the order, requirement, decision, or determination made by the administrative official in the administration or the enforcement of a zoning-related regulation. A 2/3 quorum present is required to overturn the decision of the planning director in an appeal. We also have special exceptions. A special exception is issued by the BZA authorizing a particular use in a specified location within the district. Upon demonstrating such use complies with all the conditions and standards specified in the Zoning and Land Regulation Ordinance, also known as ZELDAR. The BZA must find that a special exception must meet all 6 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to grant a special exception. A simple majority is required to grant a special exception. And then finally, we have a variance. A variance is a relaxation of the regulation of the ordinance where such an action will not be contrary to the public interest and to the conditions of the property, and nor will result in the actions or situations of the applicant. A literal enforcement of this code will result in the unnecessary and undue hardship, and such variance is consistent with Section 6-29-800 of the Code of the State of South Carolina, Title 6, Chapter 29. The BZA must find that the variance request meets all 7 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to grant a variance. A simple majority is required to grant a variance. Our purpose tonight is for all interested parties to be heard in order to assist this board into gathering pertinent information for each case. If a member of the BZA feels a need for further information to clarify the case, the board has the authority to subpoena witnesses. It must be understood that the rules of your neighborhood or your subdivision are binding and that we can make and take no action that would negate their jurisdiction over your property. In addition to your testimony, our board has been presented written documents and evidence submitted by the staff and presented by the applicant or the applicant staff for each case. This information is now considered evidence and is entered into the permanent record of this body. It is assumed to be complete, true, and accurate. In addition, we have been presented data assembled by staff for the purpose of clarifying the location and the application's effect on surrounding properties. Our board is empowered to approve with conditions, or to deny a special exception or a variance request tonight. We're also authorized to defer a case should there be a need to obtain additional information. The final decision that you will get tonight will be mailed within 10 working days of this public hearing. It will be mailed, certified mail to the applicant and regular mail to the neighbors and the community of interest. If an applicant's request is approved, the applicant should contact the Charleston County Zoning and Planning Department staff to discuss the next steps in the process. Variances and special exceptions granted this evening are valid for 12 months after this meeting, and a one-year extension may be granted only if construction or development has been commenced or being diligently pursued. However, if an applicant request is disapproved, the applicant wishes to appeal the decision of this board concerning the case, an appeal must be addressed to the circuit court. South Carolina Code 6-29-820 states that an appeal must be filed by the applicant within 30 days after the decision of this board. Failure to file an appeal with this time period deprives this court of its jurisdiction over this matter. Because this is a quasi-judicial body, saying everything said at this meeting must be true, complete, and accurate. All information provided to the BZA is considered evidence, and this board may be certified contempt of circuit court if false statements are made either orally or in writing. Each person that is wishing to speak to this body, we ask that you stand as a group, and our secretary will administer the oath. So yes, now we've had a small change. Our current secretary is out and she will not be here. So we're going to have to swear in a new acting secretary. So at this point, board members, can I get a motion to have a new acting secretary?
Yeah, I move
nomination.
I move that Mr. Downey be our acting secretary for this meeting tonight.
Do I have a second? Okay, I heard Mr. Jordan. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. It all carries. So at this time, Mr. Dally will administer the oath. So all those who are wanting to speak tonight, I ask that you stand and raise your right hand for the oath.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after and say I will say the oath and you will say I do. I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I do. All right, you may be seated.
Thank you, sir. I will now call each case by case number. Staff will be presenting facts that are pertinent to each case, limited to 5 minutes. I will then call the applicant. The applicant will then stand, state his or her name and the current address or record before presenting testimony pertinent to each case, limited to 5 minutes. I will then ask for those speaking either in support or in opposition of the case, and they will follow the same procedure in identifying themselves and are limited to 2 minutes each. The applicant then will have a chance to reply to any opposition, limited to 2 minutes. And then the BZA will make a motion to close the case to the public. Finally, the BZA will make a motion concerning the application, stating specific findings of facts and conclusion of law. Tonight we're here 2 old cases, and 7 new cases. And also, we will make some changes in the order in which we will present each case. And to start off, we have Ms. Sally Brooks, who will start us off with the first case.
So do you want to?
We want to go ahead and start with the
last
deferral.
The last two cases.
The last 2 cases.
Ending in 00749 and 00750 for Ken Robolowski with Leland Park LLC. I believe they have a representative here to request a deferral.
Okay.
And the board would need to deliberate over whether to allow that or not.
Okay. All right. Is the applicant present for case BZA 01-24-00749?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Please come to the podium.
And this
And please,
request would,
please tell us why we should defer your case.
thank you, Your Honor. And this request would also be, if it meets with procedure for the next item that relates to the same property.
I just have to do one at a time.
Of course.
I can.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Ellis Leesman. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Leland Park. We would request a deferral, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman, to allow for further discussions. We are aware of additional public opposition for one. I know there's some folks here in the audience. Ms. Brooks and Ms. Avery have my contact information. I'd like to have the applicant team engage in some further discussions with them. As you know, sometimes there are objections that can be resolved and worked through. Sometimes there aren't, and people can agree to disagree. But we'd like to have further conversations about that. We weren't aware of all of that opposition. Also, I've had some conversations at the staff level. I'd like to have those discussions go a little bit further as well, so that we could educate them based on what the ultimate plan for the property might be. Again, this is just to allow for access and a variance to allow for access. But Mr. Chairman and members of the BZA, we believe a deferral will allow for us to have some further conversations, explore some of the objections that have been raised, and see what we can do to try to resolve any of those.
So after talking with staff briefly after our annual meeting, I'm not totally sure exactly when you could get back on the docket. Would that be in 90 days or 60 days from now?
So the motion,
If
the
we
best motion
grant.
would be to defer up to 90 days, and then staff would be in touch with the board and the applicant as well as the community as to when that will be rescheduled.
Okay. So board members, you've heard the request to defer. Do we have any questions? Do we have any discussion?
Well, this is without harm to the opposition. It seems fair and reasonable for these folks to try to work together, both on the opposition and the applicant, to come up with a satisfactory response. So it seems only fair and wise for this application to be made, and will be in favor of it.
Okay. That you are representing the applicant for both cases, 749 and 750, would that be the same reasons for both cases?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. What is your pleasure, board? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question. Is there a way we can see how many people are here and that were planning on speaking? Because if a lot of people were here, I'd like to know I'm in favor of always supporting an applicant that is asking for a deferral for time to speak to the public. I'm just curious to see how many are here tonight, because we want these people to be able to know that we're going to hear their case in a month or 60 days. But
Mr. Hughey?
Well, I mean, they're going to get, sorry. Their way of knowing about this is through the notice requirement. So while it's appropriate, you can ask how many people. I don't think that has any bearing on the request.
That's why I wanted that. Then I would just, my only comment is I'll be supporting a motion for deferral, but I would imagine that the representative from the applicant today will make sure that he gives his name and number to all these people that are here tonight, so that we can not have come back in 30 or 60 days and have another deferral or another issue rise. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I guess they already stood up, regardless. And maybe they might stand again so they could be clearly seen, but I don't know. I'm not asking that. So, we have a motion.
Well, I didn't make a motion. I was letting somebody.
I made the motion.
You made the motion,
I second.
and Ms. Switzer Small seconds. Any discussion? Any questions of staff?
This is for item 49.
You need 2 votes.
Right.
The applicant's representative has the same reasoning for both cases, so you need to vote on both cases. You need 2 separate votes.
Okay. Just like I said initially. So let's do 749 first. And that's what we got the motion for,
I
correct?
second.
Okay.
And same motion on the next.
Well, let's do one in the first and get one vote at a way. All right, so all those in favor of deferring 749, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. Well, it is a unanimous, okay? Moving right along, 750. I need a motion for that.
Same motion.
Same motion?
Second.
Same second. Very good. Any discussion? Question? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. It is unanimous. So, okay, there you go. Both of your cases were approved for the deferral. Staff will contact you on the next time that you will need to come back to this board to discuss and get approval to move forward. Okay? You'll be getting information, certified mail as well. Okay? Thank you. All right. So anybody, for those last 2 cases, thank you for your time coming out tonight. All right. Yes. So the first, well, I was about to say the first. Yeah, wait to them. If you guys would please just go outside to have your
All these
discussion.
no's here.
So our next case is BZA 0701-24-00724 and 27. You gonna do them together like that?
Yes, I will present them together and with a separate, 2 separate votes.
Thank you.
Okay. Save you a little time, hopefully. Okay,
Thank you,
great.
Ms. Brooks.
Yeah, of course. The applicant and property owner, Chet Carter of Inspiration Station LLC, represented by Andrew, I know I'm gonna I better not. Yeah, of Barrier Island Engineering and Consulting is requesting a variance to reduce the required 50-foot OCRM critical line setback and to reduce the required 35-foot OCRM critical line buffer for the encroachment of 3 proposed hotel motel buildings at 2594 Ashley River Road, TMS 355070009 in the St. Andrews area of Charleston County. And that is case 00724. The 0.65 acre subject property is located in the Ashley River Road Corridor Overlay zoning district with a community commercial designation, as well as the property to the, let's see, let me get you a map here. To the west, across from the subject property on Ashley River Road. The property borders the marsh to the north, and properties in the city of Charleston's jurisdiction to the south and east. The city of Charleston properties are zoned general business and DR-12, a multifamily zoning. The proposed project, the cottages at Church Creek, is currently in the site plan review process. The Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance, Chapter 4, Base Zoning Districts, Article 4.21, CC Community Commercial District, Section 421.3, Density and Intensity Dimensional Standards requires a 50-foot wetland buffer and OCRM critical lines, a 50-foot wetland waterway and OCRM critical line setback, and a 35-foot wetland waterway and OCRM critical line buffer. Here are those requirements. I do want to go into, so that's for case 724. For case 727, the request is a variance to waive the requirement to plant canopy trees in the required 8-foot perimeter landscape area. And that falls under Chapter 9 Development Standards, Article 9.4 Landscape Screening and Buffer Section, the 9.4.3 Parking, Loading, and Vehicular Use Area Landscaping. The applicant had originally requested 4 variances for 4 proposed hotel motel buildings. The variance requests were heard, then deferred by the BZA at the December 4th, 2023 BZA public hearing. The applicant has since made some revisions to the plan. You'll see outline of 7 items in the staff report that have been modified on the plan. And based on the revisions, the applicant is now requesting a total of 2 variances for 3 proposed hotel motel buildings. Staff conducted a site visit of the subject property on November 14th, 2023 and February 14th, 2024. I'll just scroll through some of the other information here in the PowerPoint. This is in concern to the case 727 and the ZLDR statute for that, overlay district and the zoning map, and the radius map for all the properties notified. The subject property aerial photograph and a zoomed out aerial. And here are some pictures from the site visit. The subject property, Ashley River Road, survey of the property, the property plat. Let's see. And so for the approval criteria for both cases, 00724 and 00727 for the staff response. Excuse me. Staff concluded that both applications may meet criteria 1 through 4 and criteria 6 and 7 and meets criteria 5 for both cases. For case 724, we did have some conditions. In the event the board decides to approve the application, the staff recommends the following conditions. 1, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete site plan review. 2, prior to commencing construction, silt fencing shall be installed along the critical line. The silt fencing shall be, the silt fencing shall be maintained for the duration of construction. 3, the applicant shall coordinate with Public Works Stormwater Division to address stormwater mitigation measures such as the use of rain barrels or rain gardens to reduce the flow of stormwater into the marsh. 3, documentation of the approved measures shall be submitted as part of the zoning permit application. Condition 4, the encroachment area shall be limited to the footprint area shown as submitted on the site plan. And Condition 5, the applicant shall work with staff to develop a plan to prevent parking under the 36-inch DBH willow oak. In the event that the board also would consider approving case 00727, staff recommends additional 2 conditions, same as previous 2 conditions. 1, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the site plan review process, and 2, the applicant shall work with staff to develop a plan to prevent parking under the 36-inch DBH willow oak tree. Does the board have any questions of staff at this point?
All right, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties here with my iPad, but Ms. Clark is, I think, remedied it for me. So, and this might be a question that I'll need much more detail on from the applicant, but to start off with, I'm thinking I'm seeing the 2 different site plans, the previous site plan here and the new site plan. So it looks like the original site plan had 5 buildings on it, I believe. And now the new site plan has 3 buildings. So my question is really going to be, confirm that for me. And 2, is the square footage of the 3 buildings, is the square footage the same or similar total in the 2 different site plans? Have we increased the square footage? Have we decreased the square footage of the buildings? And has that affected any parking spots as well?
Yeah, right. So I was trying to actually flip through the PowerPoint for the graphic here, but basically the explanation is they have removed one of there had originally been a request for 2 additional, it's a 2-bedroom larger unit building, and they actually removed that from the proposal for the project. So that has reduced the overall square footage for the building coverage, and reduced the amount of parking needed, and then reduce the area of disturbance, which has affected the impacts on the grand trees. And so that's sort of changed the site plan in a way that reduced the amount of variance.
And Mr. Chair, if I may follow up on that, the other question that I'll be looking for in more detail, if staff can answer this or not, it's fine, is the actual request that they're coming here for is the encroachment or critical line setback going from 50 feet to 35 feet. I think they didn't have as much of that before, but because they're putting the buildings where they are now, they still have a pretty good buffer encroachment that they're trying to deal with. Is that correct?
It is correct, and I believe they've provided some additional graphics in the submittal to try and help illustrate their
change.
argument for the need for that. So
I'm fine, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on that side? On my left? Mr. Williams?
This might be a question for the applicant, but what's the need for not utilizing the plant canopy trees of 8 feet? What is their reasoning for that?
yes, so
To waive that requirement?
there's some easements that run down that property line, and they are in conflict with that buffer area. So that is part of their request. Typically, you would see people kind of like shift their driveway over even more, but based on the configuration of the property, it doesn't seem like that was really possible for them, so they're sort of overlapping that buffer with those easements, and that's sort of necessitating them that it's usually utilities and whatnot, they don't like trees and things planted over their utility easements, so
I see, thank you.
there's a conflict, yeah.
I have a question for Mr. Dowie. How is this motel, hotel application different from a STR parking requirement?
So I can,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So a short-term rental is a home, it's one home. This is multiple buildings, and in the overlay district, there is allowance for a hotel or motel, which would fall under this definition since it's a continuous rental and not limited on the number of days, or a commercial guest house, which is one house and not multiple units.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Nelson?
I'll wait for Mr. Brooks, Ms. Brooks.
Oh.
Ms. Brooks, do you recall if staff's recommendations for the specific criterion changed from the previous application to this version?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't have any of that in front of me. I meant to look it up
Yeah.
today and never had a chance.
That's a good question. I don't right offhand recall the changes in the staff's response.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sorry for that.
Any other questions to my left? All right. Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Is the applicant present? Okay. Please state your name and address for the record, and welcome back. And please speak into the mic so we can hear you and everything can be recorded.
Yeah, my name is Chet Carter. Address is 1414 Pushy Drive, Charleston, South Carolina, 29407. Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. I'm going to share this graphic with you. I believe you have it in the package, but it's basically our old site plan. And I just want to walk through the changes we made from old to new, just to kind of, if that's acceptable.
If you would hand it to Mr. Anderson, would you please? Yes,
And
please.
I believe you also have this same document in your packet as well.
We do.
Okay.
Okay,
And,
the new one's on the back. Okay.
yeah, the other side with the numbers on it. Flip it around from the side you're looking at.
This
There.
says new side.
So yeah, this is.
facing you.
I wanted to start with the old side. That way, I can provide before and after just a little explanation, if that's okay.
Okay, I'm going to pass it down. So give us a brief moment so that we
Okay.
can review that.
Pull it up on the screen as well.
Yes. Ms. Brooks, could you pull that illustration up on? I know I'm asking a million questions. If you could pull
See if
that
that's
up.
loaded on here. I don't know that that's loaded in the,
Because I have a hard time. I don't know.
Mine's
Is
doing the
everybody
same
else?
thing, yeah.
The PDF crashed.
Yeah, they're crashing all the time, and it just keeps going out.
So, bit of housekeeping. The iPads are updating. Ms. Smalls was the start, so it might be going its way down. But yes, the iPads are updating. So if your iPad is not updating at the time, please share with your neighbor. We would greatly appreciate it.
Is that yours? That's mine.
It's more like it says a state on it, right?
Yep. Start on, yes. Well, I don't know if everybody can see it. I'm just going to pass it down for a moment. I'll turn it around. Thank you also, Mr. Anderson. Please continue. Well, let Ms. Brooks get this up first.
Wait for her.
Yes, please. I'll
Okay.
give you more time. I'm not going to steal your time.
Okay. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please have a little patience with this. We're going to see if we can pull this up. We might be having a little technical difficulty here with iPads updating as we're having our meeting, so.
Yeah, we'll have to go on our shared drive and find the actual file, but we need to coordinate with our IT because this PowerPoint is specially loaded for
Okay.
this
Yeah.
meeting.
Yep. So, board members, you can look on page 24, and it also has the illustration of the site. So that's 24. Mines keep crashing, but I.
You got 15 and 24.
Yes, sir. Who on the board has theirs up where they can see the site? You can see it on that side?
Yeah.
Can you guys see it down at it, on that end? Oh, you sure? Okay, so we're good. We're good. We just can't see it on the overhead, so,
Okay.
oh, wait, there we
All
go.
right, I got it.
Okay,
Working
great.
some magic here.
So this is the document everyone's looking at here with the numbers 1 through 7? Okay, perfect. We're good to go?
Yeah, we're good. We're
Okay.
good. We'll start your time now.
So yeah, as Sally alluded to, basically we dropped from last time 4 variances down to 2 variances. And the 2 variances that we have left, we've reduced the impact of those a bit as well. So I'm going to walk through 1 through 7 here. This is the old site plan as it says up there. So 1 right there, that was one of our variances we were asking for previously, the sidewalk right there. We eliminated that. We put the sidewalk back in, as you'll see on the new site plan. Item 2 here, as Sally alluded to, we eliminated this larger unit. And Roy, while I'm on this to answer your question, we did not change the square footage or the footprint to any of the other buildings. So actually what we did there, that number 2, we moved it to where number 6 is because that's our handicap building. But essentially we eliminated one of the larger units. Number 3, we gave back some of the setback there. So now between the 2 buildings to the right and left of number 3, we have the critical line dip down between those 2 buildings to help offset the setback variance that we're asking for. So moving on to number 4, this is still one of the variances that we're asking for, encroaching into, for lack of the proper technical term, but being too close to that property line. I'll have to let my engineer answer that in more detail, but we've reduced that. We've actually given back some of the area there. So essentially, north to south, we've crunched up the property even more than we had before. Moving on to number 5, by eliminating one of the larger units, it allowed us to eliminate 2 parking spaces. And also, tied in with number 7, we've moved that building out, that storage building, to where number 2 is. So by removing 5 and 7, that allowed us to eliminate the Grand Tree variance, the Grand Tree encroachment variance, right? So we're no longer encroaching on that Grand Tree. And then where number 6 is, that was replaced with a handicap building. We slid that down away from the marsh edge a bit, giving some of that area back and allowing us to eliminate that Grand Tree encroachment. So that's the high-level changes. Hopefully that makes sense. And if y'all have any questions, please let me know. And yeah, maybe the new site plan can be brought up. Are you able to bring up the new?
Which one do you want?
Andy, which?
Oh.
one is as good as any.
That one.
Is this one okay, or?
Go up a couple of sheets.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
The shaded, okay.
Yeah, with the blue. Okay, and then was there any other questions for me? I'll let Andy get up and maybe provide some more technical detail as needed and answer any more technical questions.
Just hold tight,
Okay.
and you stepped up to the mic first, so we got to deal with you first. Then we'll get a chance to deal with your engineer.
Sounds good.
Okay. Board members, do we have any questions thus far of this new site that they have here? All right, Mr. Williams, if you would
Hi.
start.
How you doing? Question, how many residents do you expect to come into this property and use it, and how many cars do you expect to come in and out of these properties?
Yes,
Like,
sir.
say on a weekly or daily basis?
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams. So we have 2 duplexes. Each of those will be 2 people each, max. So 2 duplexes, that's 4 units, so that's 8 people in those. And then the one larger unit will be 4 people. So 8 plus 4, that's 12 people total max, with some small children. And parking spaces, I'm going to defer that question to my engineer, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, and so then, okay, parking space, okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to go back to my original question and make sure I'm not missing something here. I applaud your efforts to reduce the amount of activity on this site. But I am trying to understand, the question I asked originally was, have we increased or decreased the amount of square footage for all of the buildings that are being used for Airbnb or whatever the hospitality portion is? You've taken the location building 7, or what was up there a minute ago, problem number 7, and relocated it over to the front side. So you still have 3 main buildings for occupancy, and then you've got some type of building for support, right?
Yes, sir.
So the 3 buildings combined, what are their square footage for occupancy? And what were they with the 4 buildings before on the original plan? Rough numbers is fine.
So currently, we're a little over 2,000, probably around 2,500 square
Currently?
foot total, sir.
The new plan?
The new plan, yes. That's give or take 100, 200
Okay.
square foot. So that's total cumulative. Before, it would have been about 1,900 to 1,000 square foot in addition to that.
More?
More, yes, because we eliminated that larger unit, which would have eliminated that square footage completely.
So instead of counting square foot, let's count bodies. How many bodies could sleep in the original plan, and how many bodies can sleep in the new plan?
Yes, sir. So we went from 16 bodies to 12 bodies.
16 to 12. And that's why the parking went down, correct? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Anybody else on my right? Yes, sir, Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Carter, thank you for coming back and for all the work that you've done on this plan. I have a question that your engineer may have to answer, but in terms of the stormwater design for this project, is all of the water draining back toward the rain guarding that would come off the structures?
Okay, yes, I'll defer that one to my engineer. It'll be the guy for you there.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Ms. Smalls?
Also, still maybe a question for the engineer. I'm just wondering about flooding in that potential area because the Church Creek area already floods quite a bit. So I'm just wondering how you all have planned and compensated for that.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Smalls, I'll try to answer that as best I can. I may leave it to my engineer or architect to fill in the gaps when they get up here. It is, I believe, an A12 flood elevation, and we're having to build elevated to counteract for that. So for lack of the proper term, we're building on stilts.
Do you know if it will impact other properties that are already in that area, though? And so, again, I'm just wondering, in the planning process, if you've thought about that, because there's like a fire station and some other a small shopping center not too far from there. And I know that area floods quite a bit because I ride through there quite a bit. So
Yep.
maybe your engineer can answer that.
Okay, yes, ma'am. I'll hopefully they can answer that in a little bit more technical detail than I'm able to provide.
Okay, Mr. Williams?
One more question, because I might not get a chance to ask you later. But you've come back to the board, obviously. What is there any other building that you could fit in on this property? And why did you choose this particular set of buildings? Because I'm trying to figure out how I can help you to meet number 6, which is the applicant's own action. So, just looking at the property, help us understand that. Like, is there any other buildings you could have put on here? Because I have to help you. I have to approve all 7 criteria, and I'm helping problem number 6.
Yes, sir. So we considered putting all the buildings together, connected, right? As I mentioned to Mr. Neal over here, we're at, I think it was his question, we're at just over 2,000 square foot. So total cumulative property square footage, we're very small, right, for a commercial space. We considered putting all the buildings together, but when we looked at that, we would still have been at the same footprint square footage, right? And also, it would have presented more challenges with grand tree encroachment. So by splitting them up, it actually helps our case to minimize grand tree encroachment and some of the other encroachments. But so I think there's perhaps a perception here that because there's multiple buildings that we're putting a lot on the property. But as I mentioned in the previous meeting, these buildings are tiny. These units are 400 square foot. The smaller units are 400 square foot each. The larger units like 800, 900 square foot. So they're literally like tiny houses is what they are. So even though there's multiple buildings, they're very small footprint. So from a commercial standpoint, we're putting a very small footprint onto the property. So
Thank you.
Last question. Do you have any elevations of these buildings?
when you say elevations, like a rendering or something like
Yes.
that? Yes, sir.
I wanted to see if he had any big ones. Because mine's still glitchy. But this is the first time this happened, though. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I have a follow-up when you allow it.
Yes, please.
Can you point out on your newest rendering, which I think is up on the screen in front of us and in front of my iPad, where which tree is the canopy tree that you're asking for the variance number, the second variance? Is it for the utility building?
Kind of. Yeah, I may defer that, Mr. Neal,
Okay,
to my
that's fine.
engineer. Is that
That's
okay with
That's
you?
a piece of information. I understand the first one for the critical setback line, but I think I see which tree is causing the canopy issues, but I want to make sure I'm not missing something. So we can hold that for the engineers, quite all right.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
So let me clarify that. Okay, yeah. So that any canopy tree, grand tree encroachment has been resolved based on their revisions. So they no longer, that request has been they don't need to request that anymore. Yes, yeah. So that was resolved with the revisions to the plan. So the only two variances that are left from the previous requests to today are the critical line buffer setback reduction and the requirement to plant canopy trees in the buffer along that property line to the south where the driveway is that runs parallel to the driveway. Yeah, so it's just to eliminate the requirement to plant canopy trees in that 8-foot buffer.
All right, Mr. Chair, then I do have a follow-up on that, if I may.
Yes, please.
So you're asking to waive the requirement. Are you offering a mediation, some type of remedy to plant them somewhere else or to donate to the tree fund? What's your remedy for that, for asking us to completely waive the requirement?
Okay. And I'll also defer that to
Okay,
my
that's fine.
engineer. Okay.
Thank you.
Good with that.
Good questions. Okay. Thank you for your testimony today.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, board members.
Yes, thank you, sir. We have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Please, sir.
My name is Andy Bajowski with Barrier Island Engineering. Address is 759 Folly Road, Charleston, 29412.
Thank you.
I guess I'll just start with addressing some of the questions that are left unanswered. I think everybody's got a good understanding of the changes that have been made. But to start with, the request on the planting of the 3 canopy trees that are required, that's an 8-foot vehicular use buffer on the south property line adjacent to the fire station. The planting requirements for an 8-foot vehicular use buffer requires canopy trees to be planted. However, there's a CWS force main and an overhead power line that run down that property line. So the canopy trees cannot be planted because a deep root system would damage that force main, and they're just going to end up getting butchered by the power company. So that's the request there is not to, try to avoid any tree mitigation, because it's not the tree removals or mitigation that's required. It's just the planting requirements of the buffer. We're still meeting the requirements of all the other understory and shrub that's required, and a 6-foot privacy fence.
And you couldn't have put those canopy trees anywhere else?
Well, they wouldn't serve the purpose anywhere else. So the purpose is to help the screening to the adjacent use and screen it from the vehicular use that's against the property line. So if we move them outside of the property line, the buffer against the property line, then it negates the purpose of them screening the parking.
Good point. Thank you. What other questions we have for this gentleman?
I got a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Nelson.
So the stormwater controls here, the whole purpose of the critical line buffer is to deter runoff from entering into the marsh. Mm-hmm. And your stormwater controls, will they allow for stormwater to run back to the marsh, or will they come to the rain garden in the center of the drive?
It all comes to the rain garden. So the roof drainage will tie back to the pervious pavers in the rain garden. And then that rain garden outlets on the lower left-hand side to the roadside ditch near the property corner there, which ultimately then runs north to the creek.
Okay, thank you.
That's pretty elaborate.
I'll add on to that the entire driving surface, drive aisle, parking, all of that inside the property line is all pervious pavers.
Question, Mr. Neal.
Yes, sir.
I'll follow up on Ms. Small's question about the topo, and this with Mr. Nelson also. Is there a significant drop off in the topo slanting one way or another on this property, or does it just go down towards the wetlands towards the back?
It's actually pretty gradual up to about the point that we have the building set, and then it starts to fall off into the marsh. Okay. So there's minimal, I would say minimal fill, required to make the stormwater work here, bringing it back to the central rain garden.
And Ms. Smalls was concerned about the Church Creek Basin there, I believe. What's the topo there? So how high are you having to build?
So the buildings are going to be elevated. 2 feet above base flood elevation. So there will be elevated buildings, parking underneath. I don't remember specific grades offhand.
That's fine.
As what our grades are.
Thank
I do, offhand, seasonal high groundwater table was very better than expected for this property. So there shouldn't be any issues with the rain garden and the construction of that in conflict with the groundwater table.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on my right? Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir. I'll ask you the question about the cars. How many cars do you expect in and out? Because I know there's a lot of traffic in that area.
So the smaller duplex units require one space per unit. The parking is supplied underneath the units for those. And then there's additional parking space off to the side for the handicap unit, since that cannot be accessed to park underneath. So there are 6 parking spaces, I believe, offhand.
So you just have that one handicap parking spot?
Yes, and that's for the farthest unit to the right is the ADA accessible unit.
So how are they accessing that unit if it's on stilts? You have an elevator in there?
Yes. I think there is, yes.
Okay. Any more questions? All good questions. Yes, sir.
I'd like to add on Mr. Williams' previous question about could we build anything else on this site? So we provided this.
I don't think we can see it from that far, so I'm going to ask Mr. Anderson to get that from us.
It should be in the packet as well. It probably didn't make a whole lot of sense without explanation, but we tried to talk about this at the last meeting, and I think I was having a hard time explaining without a visual to go along with it. So this exhibit right here shows the required buffer and setback per the ordinance if it were applied exactly as the ordinance is written. And that is both for the critical line buffer and for the 8-foot vehicular use buffer if we have to include the canopy trees outside of the easement. The site, being a commercial site or commercial use, has two-way drive aisle that's 24 feet wide for access. So what is depicted there is what is left over on the frontage of the property that could be built on. So we have 24-foot drive aisle, 5-foot sidewalk, 3-foot foundation planting strip, and we're left with about 9 feet of width to be able to build a building without any variances. So the next question, maybe couldn't you just put the building in the back and build a bigger building? If we do that, we have to put all of our parking in front of the building. And if all of our parking is in front of the building, we would be back to BZA to ask for a variance to have parking in front of the building. So I hope that this is helpful to understand exactly how that setback and buffer really pinches the buildable area here.
Okay. I think you did a much better job this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It helped to know what questions were coming first.
Well, yes. Well, thank you for your testimony today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yes, sir. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? These two applications, as a matter of fact. Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. This case is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any other questions of staff? Mr. Neal.
Mr. Chair, were there any letters of opposition, public comments that were received on this application?
No.
That's all I needed to know.
Okay. Any more questions? Ms. Switzer Smalls? Did you have a question, Ms. Smalls?
I am just thinking about, as a board, because we often get these requests to And I'm just wondering what kind of damage we are doing long-term to sort of wetlands and the critical line and the environment around those areas. So just trying to put it all together in my mind. Is it something that, I mean, there's a reason why OCRM has that critical line there. And what are we doing as a board by consistently allowing people to go into those, giving them variances to go further and further into that line? And how does it impact the communities around them, particularly as it relates to flooding?
Mr. Chair, I'll follow up on it.
Yes,
I mean, Ms. Williams, I think it's a great comment you're making. We have to take these site by site, and I think the last presentation to me was the strongest. I think in two parts. One, they're not asking to go from 50 down to 15. They're asking to go from 50 to 35, which is a smaller request than we normally see. We're always seeing 50 down to 25, it seems like. And then the other thing is this is a unique piece of property, and I think that's what BOZA is at the heart. I mean, we're looking at, we just don't want to, I think the first time we saw this back in December, it was a mess, and it just wasn't right, and it was too much. And I think every one of us were nodding our heads saying, this seems to be too much. Could a little bit more be done here? I don't know if you can get much more out of this one. And I think it's a very good exercise that the applicant has gone through. I like it a lot better. He's actually reduced the buildings and number of occupancies from 16 down to 12. That's a haircut he took on his financial projections, I can assure you. So he's squeezing it as hard as he can squeeze. So, I'm going to be in support if there's a motion out there to take it from the 50 to 35. I clearly understand now the 8-foot canopy thing. I was thinking it was trees. Are we going to replace trees? No, they just don't want trees under power lines because everybody knows what's going to happen when they're in the root system. So I think we're down to two reasonable variances that I can get behind the support. But of course, I'm just one vote. So I'm with you on the OCRM. I hate going in setbacks because they can usually pull a building somewhere else. But I think this is the best solution for this property if it's going to get developed.
Mr. Nelson?
And I would add, I'd concur with everything, but I would add to it that the stormwater measures that the applicant's proposing in bringing the stormwater back off the buildings back to the rain garden would really, they're going to provide the same benefit that OCRM is looking for when it comes to the buffer encroachment. So keeping that forested buffer there, it's still going to act like it should, and then having stormwater hitting the rain garden, being treated in the rain garden before it's discharged into Church Creek will help alleviate any other concerns.
Thank you for your comments, gentlemen. I'm just really concerned because I know I live in that area. There's a new housing development there. There are already other buildings there. So the flooding thing was big for me, and that's the reason I posed that.
Ms. Smalls, I thank you for being the guardian and the gate guard of that area. And anytime that area comes up, you have your arms up and your sword ready. So I understand and I appreciate what you're doing, and you are representing your area well. So thank you. Any other questions for staff? General discussion. At this time, board members, can I entertain a motion to either approve or deny this application? 724.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
In the matter of BZA 1123-00724, I would make a motion that we approve this request. One, I find that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. In particular, the applicant's argument that the buildable area on this property, when all of the requested or all of the necessary buffers are applied to it, would reduce the buildable area to a point that really makes the property infeasible to even use. So that we meet that criterion. For criterion 2, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Again, this being a commercial piece, a small commercial piece to start with a number of setbacks, grand oaks and everything else, we meet that criterion as well. For criterion 3, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. I believe we meet that criterion similar to what we have with criterions 1 and 2, that again, due to all of the restrictions associated with the building envelope that would be left over, we meet that criterion that strict application of the ordinance would unreasonably restrict development of the property. For criterion 4, the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. In this case, the applicant has made a concerted effort to even add things like the sidewalk back to the plan, so that when the county or the DOT is ready to extend the sidewalk over the bridge, that the necessary infrastructure is there for that to occur. So he's doing some work that is within the public good, and the implementation of rain gardens on the property also serve to protect stormwater discharge from the site. So I believe we meet that criterion. For criterion 5, the BZA shall not grant a variance if the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use that is not otherwise permitted. We clearly meet that criterion, since this use is permitted in that zoning district. For criterion 6, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. Again, similar to criterions 1, 2, and 3, this particular action is really the result of the combination of buffers and setbacks that would be required to actually develop on this property, cause a variance to occur no matter which way they go. So I believe we meet that criterion. And for criterion 7, granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of the ordinance. I believe we meet that criterion as well. And in making this motion, I would add all 5 of staff's special conditions or recommendations that are noted in their report. And that is my motion.
Second. All right, so we have a motion that's been properly moved and second. Any questions? Discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. Any opposed? 1. It carries. So that's on 724. Okay? So you were approved. Okay. You approved on 724. All right. So let's hold the gate for 727.
Can we go ahead and hit the recording of that motion I just made? All right. Mr. Chair, in the matter of BZA 1123-00727, I would make a motion that we approve the variance request to waive the requirement to plant canopy trees within the required 8-foot perimeter landscape area. In making this motion, I find that, 1, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. And as stated before in the previous motion, the combination of buffers and setbacks that would be required to develop this property are such that the buildable area would be so small that it would render development infeasible without the application of some type of variance. So we meet criterion 1. For criterion 2, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Again, there are very few properties, if any, that are sitting on the critical area adjacent to Salt Marsh that are also zoned commercial and have this many restrictions to them. So I believe we meet that criterion. For criterion 3, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance, the application of this ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The applicant has done an outstanding job of showing how all of the setbacks and buffer requirements for this particular property would negatively affect and prohibit the construction of any type of commercial building on the property. So we meet that criterion. For criterion 4, the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by granting of the variance. Again, with this particular piece and the work the applicant has done to move things and shift things around, I believe that allowing reduction or removal of the 8-foot canopy trees is applicable to help them achieve the other requirements for development of the property as they proposed. For criterion 5, the BZA shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in the zoning district. We clearly meet that criterion since we are not changing any allowed uses on the property. For criterion 6, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. As stated before, I'm compelled that the number of setbacks and buffer requirements for this particular piece of property are what really cause the need for the variance and not the actions proposed by the applicants. We meet that criterion. And criterion 7, granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of the ordinance. I believe we meet that criterion as well. In making this motion, I would recommend we include all 5 of the conditions recommended by staff.
Second.
I thought it was only 2.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had the wrong one up. Is it?
I was about to say, where the three came from?
So it's 2.
Okay.
The 2 conditions.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neal. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye.
Aye.
And this time it is unanimous. So congratulations. You will get information from staff within the next 10 days, letting you know the next steps in the process. But at this point, both of your applications have been approved. Congratulations and good night.
This one, yeah. Sometimes things work out when I change it around, yeah.
If my thing can stop glitching, I think I can pull up the next one. So our next case is BZA 0124744, and that will be done by Mr. Joshua Dowling.
All right, so BCA case 01-24-00744. The applicant Douglas
744.
Hickerson and the property owner Mark Lipsmeyer of Nest Coastal LLC are requesting a variance to remove a 31-inch diameter breast height grand live oak tree for a proposed single-family residence at 1552 North Avalon Circle, TMS number 35213000101 in the St. Andrews area of Charleston County. The subject property and adjacent properties to the south, east, and west are located in the low-density residential R4 zoning district, and the adjacent property to the north is undevelopable marsh. The .248 subject property is vacant, and the applicant, on behalf of the property owner, is proposing to construct a 1,520 square foot single-family residence with a 560 square foot deck. The applicant has stated in their letter of intent that part of their letter of intent is in the staff's report, stating how difficult it would be for them to construct a single-family resident with the 35 foot OCRM critical line setback and the front setback. So that is a picture of the subject property and the 300-foot radius map. That is an aerial view of the subject property and a zoomed-out aerial view of the subject property. Staff conducted its site visit on Valentine's Day, November the 14th, 2024. February 14th, not November, February 14th. And that is the 31-inch diameter breast height live oak tree to be removed. Some of the pictures of the subject property. North Avalon Circle. And this is the survey of the property and the proposed site plan. The approved and recorded plat. So as far as the criteria are concerned, staff believes that it may meet criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and it meets criteria 5. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 01-24-00744, a variance request to remove a 31-inch DBH grand live oak tree for a proposed single-family residence at 1552 North Avalon Circle, TMS number 35213000101 in the St. Andrews area of Charleston County, based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event that the board decides to approve this application, the board should consider The one recommendation by staff that the applicant shall mitigate the removal of the 31-inch DBH grand live oak tree by either A, submitting mitigation plans for review and approval, indicating an installation of canopy trees no smaller than 2½ inches in caliber equaling inch per inch replacement. B, by depositing funds into the Charleston County Tree Fund as described in section 9.2.6 in the Charleston County Zoning and Land Regulations Ordinance. Or C, a combination of A and B of the allotted mitigation shall be placed prior to removal. Any questions?
Mr. Jordan?
I heard you use the word difficult. Does that mean impossible?
So, Mr. Jordan, when staff looked at this application, the narrow shape of the property along with the OCRM variance, where the tree is placed, it makes it very, very, very difficult to place any type single-family residence on the parcel without getting a variance of some sort.
Thank you.
I saw his hand first. Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two quick questions. What is the grade of the tree, and what are the calculations if they are to mitigate using the fund bank? It's going to be 31 inches. What's the calculation again?
I will defer to Mr. Foster, who is our staff arborist.
So the tree is a grade A live oak. It is
Yeah.
a very healthy tree.
Yeah, it
No
looks
visual
good.
defects. Looks awesome, yeah. So the way that we calculate the mitigation is the trees, the cost to replace the trees at market value. So the cost of that might differ from where they get the quotes from different nurseries. It differs.
Ballpark.
Oh, shoot.
I mean, it's 31 inches, so you're talking 2.5 inches minimum.
I would-
So you're talking 15 trees or so.
Let me see.
14 trees.
I can do the math right quick.
But isn't there a mitigation bank that they can put the money to?
Yes. Yeah, if they can't plant,
Right.
then they can put that
Do we have the valuation of what that would be?
I'm doing the math right now.
Awesome.
It weighs no value on how we vote.
No, I understand.
It would be about $18,600.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Downey, was there ever a structure on that lot?
I
believe-
am
look-
not sure.
Looking at the plat, this is an orange grove, right?
Yeah, this is
for
an Orange
background?
Grove. I am not sure. I do not have the answer right now. When you come around after the applicant, I will find out for you.
Okay, it's
I'll find out
interesting because
if
I
we
believe
have
that
any record
neighborhood
of it.
was platted in the 1940s. And so to have a lot in Orange Grove platted in the 1940s might not have had these same restrictions then.
Correct.
Good thought. Good thought. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, sir. Is the applicant present? All right.
Yes, sir. Hi, I'm John Sullivan, representing the applicant. My address is 104 Fishburne Street, Charleston, South Carolina, 29403.
Are you an architect?
I am an
engineer?
architect.
Okay. And the name of your firm?
Is S-Arc Studio. S-Arc Studio.
S-Arc.
Studio.
Thank you. Please tell us why we should approve this application, sir.
All right, well, no one wants to take down a grand tree, especially a nice tree, but unfortunately, due to its location, the strange shape of this lot, not only is it a pie shape, but it's a skewed pie shape, and it narrows very front to the front. So the only place to put it is the back, and we're further hampered by the 35-foot OCRM. There's also, on the opposite side of the property, on the adjacent property, there's a 29-inch grand oak too. So between the two of them, it completely covers the buildable area in the back. So our plan is unfortunately to get rid of this oak and then kind of L around the other one. I also want to kind of clarify that the staff said that the plan is for a 1,500 square foot building. That's not correct. It's a 1,500 square foot plate, where the plan is for that, the eastern half of that, where it kind of L's out to make that 2 stories. So it's closer to about 2,400 square foot footprint. Still not a very grand house with about 300 square feet or so of deck in the back overlooking the marsh. So if you look at the buildable area, you can only get maybe like a 20 by 20 foot footprint without affecting one of the trees on the other, and it's just not enough, especially when you figure you have to be up, 8 feet or so to meet flood.
Okay. I believe Mr. Nelson has a question for you.
Actually, I have a question for staff.
Well, I'll ask this question, maybe. Was there a house on that lot before?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can't tell you for certain. I'm representing the potential buyer of the site, which is Doug Hickerson. So he's under contract, assuming that he can actually build a house on this lot.
Wow, okay. Mr. Jordan?
Does anybody have an idea how old that tree is?
I do not know, no.
Well, how about you? You know trees.
So I would estimate the tree to be from 60 to 70 years old, given that it grows a half-inch a year diameter into the best conditions. So when judging tree age, just from looking at the tree, it's quite hard to get the dead accurate number, because that all differs on growing conditions, soil moisture levels, on nutrient levels. I would say anywhere between 50 to 70 years old.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I would say, as far as mitigation, we would like to plant some trees on the site. I don't think we can get all 31 inches, but, some down the driveway on the side where we're taking away this tree would definitely be that. So we're definitely fine with doing some mitigation, paying some of the tree bank and trying to plant some back too.
Would any of those be oaks?
Yeah, well, we'll go back with oaks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so very much for your testimony tonight,
You're welcome.
sir. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Okay. Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
I have a picture too.
Please state your name and address for the
My
record.
name is Ed Meyer. I live at 1542 North Avalon Circle. The property next door. There is an easement between the two properties with a drainage ditch that goes out. I don't really like to tell anybody what to do with their property, but I don't know how this piece of property got allowed to be built on in the first place. As they said, the tree that they're trying to take out makes it pretty much impossible to build something without the variance. What would have really made it impossible was the tree they cut down before. There's a picture here. One day I'm in my yard and I hear a lot of chainsaw and it keeps going. So I walk over. Just as I get there, a very large oak tree collapses into the property. There's a guy there with a chainsaw. I said, "Do you have a permit for this?" He said, "Wait, I'll call the owner. The owner's coming over." So the owner came over. I guess that's how he presented himself. And I said, "Hey, how'd you get to cut down that tree that's that big?" And he said that the company that did the survey was called Acme. Acme did the survey, told him there were no grand trees on the property. It was obvious to me that there were. And so I felt like that was pretty snuck in, cutting down that tree. There was never a house there, but for the whole 20 years that I've lived there until last year when they tore it down, there was a pretty ramshackle shed. It was a good size, about as big as this bank of chairs. But that was there. It was cinder block and just a regular outbuilding. So I don't know if there was any kind of a foundation or anything for that. But my problem with this is that caveat emptor, you can't buy a piece that you know you can't build on and then just start building on it because you figure you can give some money to the tree bank or mitigate it with some trees that no one even knows where they are. We've seen it all around this town, Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, in my neighborhood. Trees just go down. Ask them, why'd that tree go down? Oh, it was diseased. Oh, it was, huh? You know. Are you the arborist? You know. So I just wonder. I'm just trying to keep things, you know. I mean, like, if you're going to have a board, the board should do what the board's supposed to do. And in this case, I don't know how that first tree got cut down. So I didn't want to go on the guy's property, you know. But a few days later, week later, a guy came along with a trailer and a forklift and started taking away chunks of that tree, putting them on a trailer in the street. That's where that picture comes from. It shows at the, not the widest part of that tree, that it was 24 inches. That's a real tape measure. I didn't fake that. And there's another picture that my printer stopped working before I could get it out, but I have another picture of the same thing, where I took this 60-inch trailer's thing and tried to wrap it around the tree in the trailer, and it came, woefully short. It's 60 inches, so that was a large tree, and I'm just wondering how that happened.
So right now, your time has expired. So
Okay.
let me help you and see if any one of these board members have any questions for you. Any on my left? Mr. Jordan?
Maybe I should ask the applicant, I don't know, stop me if I'm wrong, but if that tree has been cut down, has any replacement trees been put in place of that one?
Well, you'll get a chance for the review. That was,
Mr. Jordan, let's ask questions of this gentleman.
yeah.
You're asking me?
Whoever. Whoever's
No,
the right one.
no. I haven't, it's all been demo so far.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone on my right? Yes, sir. Mr. Truslow.
I might not have understood, when was this tree cut down, and by whom, or at whose direction? Was it the current owner, was it?
All I can tell you is that it was a contracted person. It was a gentleman was out there just with a chainsaw and his pickup truck, and his wife and his child. They were working on this tree.
And
When I confronted that person, he held up his phone and said, "The owner's coming. The owner's coming." And so then another pickup truck pulled up, with another guy and his daughter, and that person identified themselves to me as the owner. We didn't exchange anything, I'm not looking for a fight. I just wondered how he pulled that off.
when, I'm looking for a timeline, when this happened?
I might be able to tell you because there might be something on it. No, she sent this to me Monday. This came from my wife and she sent it. So the only stamp I have in it is today's. But it was certainly within the last 6 months. It was in the last 6 months at least. And that would be a stretch.
And then did they grind this, whoever it was, the ground?
It was a
stuff?
process that took a few weeks while they got that out, because they were also tearing out the shed thing that was there too. So they filled a few dumpsters with all the roofing and cinder block and such.
Anyone else with a question? Board members? Thank you so very much for your testimony tonight,
Sure.
sir. Thank you.
Somebody got to talk for them trees.
Do we have anyone else to speak in opposition? Do we have anyone else to speak in opposition? Therefore, sir, you have the right of rebuttal, and you have 2 minutes for that, please.
Thank you, sir.
Please state your name and
John
address again.
Sullivan, 104 Fishburne Street, Charleston, South Carolina, 29403, SARC Studio. It's my understanding that that tree is not on this property. It was the neighbor's property, and they did some clearing without permitting for a new residence. So that had nothing to do with us. That's why we're here, to do it properly.
Thank you.
So,
Any questions of the board? On this? Thank you, sir. Okay. Wait a minute. Did anybody have a question?
Yeah, I did.
Could you come back up, please, sir?
Yeah. I'm sorry, just to clarify, you said it was not on the property in question, it was on the
correct.
adjacent
That's what I'm told by the
property?
real estate agent, is that it's the neighbor's property, and the neighbor is the one that cut down the tree and did the work, and had nothing to do with this property. So it's not on this property and wasn't done by this applicant or the current owner.
Okay, could we look at the plat again, just?
I was just going to ask, is staff aware of a tree improperly cut down in that area? Have there been any fines issued?
Again, I will defer that to Mr. Foster.
Yes, I am aware of that. That case has been prosecuted. It is the property is not the property question, is the one next door to it.
Not this.
Correct. It was a 24-inch live oak.
Did everybody hear that?
I didn't hear him.
It's not.
Mr. Foster, would you repeat that, please?
That tree was removed without permit on the property next door to the property that is in question currently. That case has been finished. We have gotten a mitigation payment on that tree.
Do you understand?
On this property.
It wasn't on this property.
It was on the one next door.
Okay. All right, so this case is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any questions of staff? Any discussion? Okay. I need a motion to either, yes, sir, to approve or deny.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Yes, sir, please.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
In the case of BZA 0124000744, I make a motion that we approve this application for the tree removal. I believe that there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to the property and that this tree restricts the building site and makes it unbuildable for a house in the property. Number two, the conditions do not apply to the other properties in the vicinity. This condition is that the lot is uniquely shaped and the only buildable site in the lot is toward the back where this tree is. Number three, that unnecessarily prohibits and restricts the usage of the property, that the lot is unbuildable without the tree removal. I think we've been convinced of that by the testimony. Number four, the variance will not be substantial detriment to the adjacent property or the public good. I think that this is a vacant lot in a housing area, and having a house on that property is a benefit to the community rather than a vacant lot. Number five, will not establish a use permitted in zoning district or extend a non-conforming use or change zoning boundaries. Again, it will not establish a new use. Number six, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's actions. It meets that criteria. Will not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan. It does not. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation that this be approved with one condition as outlined by the staff.
Okay. We have a motion that is properly moved and second by Mr. Truslow. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It is unanimous.
I'd like to clarify something. Sir, do you want your picture to go into the record?
Sure.
It's just if you decide you want to go to court on this. I just want the record to be complete.
It can be complete. Consider it.
Okay, thank you.
Therefore, your application has been approved. Within 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff letting you know the next steps in the process. Once again, congratulations and good night, sir. Board members, my leg's a little stiff. I'm sorry. We're going to take a 5-minute recess and 10-minute recess, and then we'll come right back, okay? Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will reconvene at this time.
Cool.
Our next case today will be done by Mr. Joshua Downing, and that will be case BZA 0124-00745.
All right, so BZA case 0124-00745, the applicant Hudson Rogers and the property owner Dolores and Donnie Love are requesting a variance to remove a 28-inch diameter breast height DBH grand red oak tree for a proposed commercial development at 1169 Highway 41, TMS number 580000035 in the east area of Charleston County. The subject property and the properties to the north and northeast are located in the Mount Pleasant Overlay Commercial Zoning District, and the properties to the south, east, and west are located in the town of Mount Pleasant's jurisdiction. The 1.13 acre subject property contains two single-family residences that were constructed in 1968 and 1970 per Charleston County records. The applicant is proposing to subdivide the property into two parcels, a .052 and a 0.62 acre, and construct a restaurant, Clutch Coffee, and a service station, Take 5 Oil, on the proposed parcel. The existing structures will be demolished. Water services is available to the property. However, a septic tank will be required because the wastewater services are not available. There are 5 existing grand trees on the property. However, 4 of the grand trees were administratively removed because they were dead, diseased, or dying. The subject property is currently going through the site plan review process, ZSPR 0823-00922. The applicant's letter of intent explains, we are proposing to remove the 28-inch red oak tree in the center of the property. We have attached all some supporting documents to our email submittal. So here is the Mount Pleasant Overlay Zoning District in the Sweetgrass Basket Stand Special Consideration Area. So here is a aerial view of the subject property. This is the 300-foot radius map, and this is an aerial view of the subject property. A zoomed out aerial view of the subject property. So staff did conduct its site visit on February the 14th. This is a picture of the red oak tree provided by the applicant, excuse me. The subject property, Highway 41. This is the tree survey. And here is a survey of the proposed lots 1 and 2. Survey of lot 1, and that is the site plan, and that is a recorded plat. I believe this is the landscape design. So as it relates to the criteria, staff believes that criteria 1 may have been met, it may meet criteria 2, it may not meet criteria 3. It may meet criteria 4. It meets criteria 5. It may meet criteria 6. And it may meet criteria 7. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions or deny BZA case 0124-00745, a variance request to remove a 28-inch DBH red oak tree for a proposed commercial development at 1169 Highway 41, TMS number 580000035 in the east area of Charleston County based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event that the board decides to approve this application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. Prior to the zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the site plan review process, and the applicant shall mitigate the removal of the 28-inch red oak tree by either A, submitting a mitigation plan for review and approval indicating the installation of canopy trees no smaller than 2 1/2 inch in caliber equaling inch per inch replacement by by depositing funds into the Charleston County Tree Fund, or C, a combination of A and B. Any questions of staff?
Mr. Neal?
Mr. Chairman. Okay, starting first one, I would imagine since the applicant's trying to jump through a lot of hoops here with subdivision of the property, I guess it's gone from did I hear you say it was 2 houses on it before? So I guess it's gone from residential to commercial use. I would imagine that zoning has already been approved. And it looks like it's really, really close to a major thoroughfare, South Carolina Highway 41. So I imagine it adheres to all of those regulations to getting that double turn in and turn out. So have all of those regulatory hoops been jumped through before we're considering this?
So the subdivision is proposed. It has not yet been recorded or approved.
Okay.
Approved and recorded. The property has been changed to a commercial zoning district. I believe it was changed with the adoption of the Mount Pleasant Overlay Zoning District. But I could be wrong on that. But the property does have a current commercial zoning district on it, which is the Mount Pleasant Overlay Commercial Zoning District. And what was the third question?
Question about DOT compliance, if there's any issues with the turn in, turn out right there, because it's pretty close to Gregory Ferry Road. I don't know the actual dimensions, how far that turn in is away, but I know that there's certain.
So I would defer that question to Ms. Brooks. This is a commercial project currently in the site plan review process, and she would have that answer.
The final part of my question is if you can pull up the current site plan, I would like to know where the tree, the 28-inch double grand red oak is in relation to their site plan. Where is it on that? Is it right there in the middle where it's going?
It is
the
right
subdivision
there in the
plan?
middle. So if you look on the site plan, kind of hard to see, but I believe it is right there in the middle, right here by where it says 2-story brick framed. It is right there in the middle.
Question, this might be for the applicant, and I'll pull back if I need to, but it seems like it's by their own actions, by the subdivision of this property, or is the canopy, why are we taking this down? Is it the canopy that's in way of the second building? I'm trying to understand why.
That I would definitely tell you to defer to the applicant. But the question about the DOT, that one I will refer to Ms. Brooks.
Yeah, so they are in the site plan review process. Typically, at this stage, they have not gotten a final permit or approval from DOT. They usually hold that till more toward the end, just based on the review time involved with that. So that as well, I think, would be a question the applicant could answer with I'm sure they're having conversations with the DOT on the curb cut and the size as they've shown a right in, right out here. But
Mr. Chairman, I follow up on that. Where I'm going with that is, isn't there a minimum linear footage of how close you can be to a major intersection because that's a state road, 41, and are they within that or they exceed that? Do you know?
So I'm sure the DOT has some standards for that. I do not know what their standards are for the county regulations. I believe it's 150 feet from just roadway intersections in general. We don't call out specific roadways, but I'm sure that the DOT has more of a scaled approach to that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Downey, can you expand upon why the county feels it doesn't meet criterion 3 but meets criterion 6?
Let me pull up back my staff report. So criteria 3, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance, particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. We believe that there are other commercial activities that could be on the property without this variance being put in place. So that was criteria 3. Why then meets criteria 6. The need of the result is not a result of the applicant's own action.
It's okay. We struggle with these criterion from
Yeah,
many of us. I was just curious if there was any specific logic behind it.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Downey. Is the applicant present? Up right here. Come on up. Please state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
I'm Hudson Rogers. My address is 1618 Main Street, Charleston, South Carolina. And I'm here representing I am the applicant representing the development.
Please speak into the mic so we can hear you a little bit louder. Or
Sorry.
just, you can turn it, it
Sorry.
won't hurt it.
I'm Hudson Rogers. My address is 1618 Main Street, Charleston, South Carolina. I'm the applicant here representing the potential development.
Okay. Please tell us why we should approve
Sure.
your application.
Sure. We have some extraordinary circumstances on this site. There is a DOT right-of-way take planned to widen Highway 41, and we were required, and any future development will be required to design to future right-of-way lines. That substantially will cut down the usable property. There's also a large easement area in the front of the property that we had to site plan around, avoid. And then also, we had our demo contractor come out and look at the tree. And because of the close proximity to the back of the existing house, he didn't see how we would be able to demo the structure to build any future development without harming that tree. And then I heard a question about DOT access. We went through permitting and do have a DOT permit for right-in, right-out access here. We also have taken the subdivision plat through the subdivision office, have, I think, checked all those boxes. The only thing they were waiting on was the original hard copy of the owner affidavit, but we wanted to wait to turn that in. So. But we went through multiple iterations of site plans with Sally and her staff, trying to figure out a way to not have to mitigate this tree. And because of drive-through screening requirements, parking requirements, shared drive aisle requirements, we couldn't come up with a plan. So the current landscape plan shows a one-for-one mitigation, replanting.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell us?
No,
Let me help you. Have you purchased this land yet?
We have not, no.
Okay. So are the Loves in this building?
They are.
I
Yep.
thought so.
Yep.
All right. I know our primary concern is the tree, but just like that lady down the very end has a guard for her neighborhood,
Yeah,
you're in my neck of the woods now.
okay. I understand.
I'm going to hold off and let these other gentlemen who are biting at the bit to get to you. Mr. Jordan, I'm going to give you the first shot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is it safe for me to assume that if DOT had not put their requirements on this, you wouldn't be considering taking this tree down?
Yes. And easement areas, but yes.
So then what's running through my mind is, even though I know we all go by rules and regulations, is DOT's taking that tree down,
Right.
not you.
Ms. Winston Smalls.
Just since you had to push back a little bit off of Highway 41, I'm looking at the line and these houses that line up back here. Do you know how close you're going to be building toward these, on the backside of these people's homes?
I don't have an exact measurement, but the buildings are oriented towards the front of the property on the 41 side. And we are leaving, or planning to leave, all natural existing buffer and then also adding additional buffer. If you look at the landscape plan in the back, there's substantial plantings going in, screenings.
Since they have not purchased the property, it sounds like you all have some plans, but if we approve here tonight, those plans could change. Just FYI for the board,
Okay,
and how comfortable you are with that.
okay. Let me run down here to this side to Mr. Truslow. I think you have a question?
Well, I just wondered if one thing was a typo, and this was maybe just a question in general, about a house being constructed in 1790? We're not talking about it.
That was a typo by staff, Mr. Truslow. Should be 1970, not 1790.
Okay. I thought that was correct. I didn't know whether there was anything that had historical significance.
You got some sharp eyes, my friend.
I was asking.
I caught that, Mr. Truslow, when I was reading the staff report. I said that was wrong. But yes, it's 1970, not 1790.
All right. The second, if you didn't subdivide, would you be able to save the tree? Are there any I'm trying to see if there are any alternatives for you.
No, sir, I don't, given the location directly in the middle of the property, and the close proximity to the existing home, I don't know how we would site plan around it or keep from damaging it during demo.
Couldn't you put a barrier around the tree if you had an alternative so you wouldn't damage the tree?
Possibly.
Okay.
Mr. Sedell?
Mr. Rogers, can we pull up the site plan for the proposed commercial development? Yeah. Can you just roughly pinpoint where the tree is on this plot?
Yes, it's directly.
I see. Okay, I see it.
In the
Thank
landscape
you.
plan.
And I'm not an architect. What is that hatch that looks like? What is that? Looks like a ladder. What does that represent? I'm sorry, I don't know what that. Between
The striping?
Yeah.
That's a pedestrian crosswalk.
That's a pedestrian crosswalk.
Between the two, yes, sir.
So, I
Or
mean, that
customer,
crosswalk could
I'm
take a
sorry.
different form, right? It could take a semicircular form or something.
The crosswalk?
There's not a street here, this is just a connecting between, huh?
That's
Just a walkway, right?
It's for customers, yes, sir.
It's for customers,
Not,
so that-
not the, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it could take a half-moon type shape, right, around a tree?
But then you wouldn't be able to drive your vehicles. You have to
You drive vehicles on this crosswalk?
through to the back of the property. This is,
Oh, I see, I'm sorry. So this is paved on
Yes,
either side
and-
of the property line, I'm sorry.
right, and it was done, laid out like this to have a substantial amount of stacking so that there's no cars backing up into Highway 41.
Okay, so aside from whether or not this commercial property could be designed to protect the tree, what your basic contention is that it cannot be saved during demolition of the house, is that?
Yes, but also the hardships related to the right-of-way take and the easement areas. Cut down on developable area.
Thank you.
Mr. Neal?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm looking at and understanding something because I think you are losing a lot of your property because of the Highway 41 widening project. So if I'm looking at your site plan, there's a large triangular section that you're losing accessibility to whatever gets developed here,
Right.
right? So your footprint's shrinking because of the Highway 41 widening down the road.
Yes.
So I'm fine with, I mean, really living in Mount Pleasant and being on the planning commission for numerous years, I've seen these type properties go from residential to commercial. So I get it. And traffic patterns change. I get it. Intersections change. I get it. So that's why I asked the questions on the front end. Have you done your zoning? Have you done your South Carolina DOT? It sounds like you've checked a lot of boxes ahead of time.
we have the DOT
So I
permit.
applaud you for that. The problem I have is what leaked out from Mr. Nelson real quick when the staff presentation, and that is we have these conditions we have to meet to grant. And the one that I'm square on the fence on, and probably not even on the fence, is number 6. This looks like you're having to lose this tree because of all the commercial activity you've got on this large property. And I want the homeowners to be able to sell their property and move somewhere else and do whatever. So I need a compelling reason of why we should grant this variance to lose this big 28-inch tree to help these people sell their property and let you do a development. And I'm stuck on number 6, not being able to grant it. So tell me why we should.
Well, it's in the commercial overlay, and then the future use is commercial.
Yeah.
Right now, it's residential. So it's, I don't know if non-conforming is the proper term, but this would be bringing it up to the intended use.
That's one reason. Is there any other reasons why we should sacrifice a tree other than what potentially could be
Well,
non-conforming?
The owners have a couple of reasons, and I'd like you to hear from them.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd like to hear those reasons. Okay. What's the square footage on your buildings, please?
One is
The coffee shop, start with it first.
850 square feet, the coffee shop, and the service station is 1,425.
Okay.
I guess it's a service station, yeah.
It's an oil
It's an
change.
oil change, yes, sir. Quick
Oil
service oil change.
I know I'm not supposed to ask this, but curiosity would have probably killed me. And I know it's not in line with the tree, Mr. Hugie. But why a coffee shop? Because you got 2 within a stone's throw
That
of
don't
this
matter.
location.
That don't matter.
That's the user that was interested in the site. They think it'll be a good location for the community. They thought there was a need for that kind of use.
Oh, that's what that is. That's a dumpster.
Okay.
That's a shared
Any
dumpster.
other questions of the Mr. Neal?
Yeah, I just want to, back to the site plan, I didn't ask it before. Right above the dividing line for the lots, it looks like it's a dumpster location behind it? Is that,
Yes, sir.
that's what that is? A shared dumpster for the 2? Maybe just dumpster for the one-on-one on each property, I guess?
Yes, sir. There's a
Yeah, the other one's down there at the
dumpster on
bottom.
each property.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's going on with this property?
Okay. Do we have any other questions? I'm sorry.
Owners.
Thank you so very much
Thank
for
you for
your
your time.
testimony. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application?
Oh, the owners didn't come. Oh, yep.
Very good. Please come forward. Please state your name and address, and please tell us why we should approve this application.
My name is Dolores Love. I live at 1169 Highway 41, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. And I do think the tree does need to come down because it is a hazard. And the reason also, my husband and I are both seniors, and we would like to move out of that area. We cannot stay in the property because it's too much for us right now. I'm 80 years old, my husband is in his late 70s, and my children would like us to move close to them because we have no one here for us. So if something happens to one of us, the other one will be taken care of. So this is another reason for we would like to move.
She was looking dead at you when she said it.
I asked.
Okay, Mr. Jordan?
I just like to say, man, that I really admire you being here at your age. I would have never guessed that.
Thank you. But I am 80 years old. I turned 80 in December, so
Congratulations.
thank you.
The 80. The 80.
Mr. Nelson?
Miss Love, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
How long have you had the property for sale?
Well, I've only been on the property for 24 years because this is not my first marriage. So it was my husband's, my mother-in-law's property, and then my husband and my mother-in-law. When she passed away, it went to him, and then I was then later put on the property. So it's both ours.
And do you know how long it's been up for sale?
I've been there for about 24 years.
Okay. Have you had any other buyers look at the property or propose developments?
This is the first one, and we went with him.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
Any more questions back on that side? Ms. Love, thank you for your testimony.
And thank you very much.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition of this application? Anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. This case is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any questions of staff?
Question. In staff's opinion, this was a question I meant to ask the applicant earlier that slipped my mind. But looking at their planting plan, tree mitigation plan, do you think it's adequate to offset the loss of the tree?
Either Ms. Brooks or Mr. Anderson would be better to answer that question.
Actually, I've not reviewed that plan, so I
Okay.
cannot comment on that.
Mr. Anderson, you want to give it a shot?
After reviewing it, it looks like it's really close. I don't remember completely off the top of my head, but if I looked over again, I don't think I had any comments on mitigation.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, may I ask, and if you say no, I completely understand. I have one follow-up question for the applicant, not for Miss Love, but for the applicant, Mr. Rogers. I just want to make sure he looked at, is it okay, or are we already closed?
Board members, do we?
I'm fine. I don't want to cause an issue. I mean,
You're not going to cause any problems, but I just have to run it by the rest of the board. Board members, do we have any objections to asking the applicant to come back?
and I don't mind sharing the question
No.
prior.
I forget your name, gentlemen.
Hudson.
Mr.
Rogers.
Hudson, if you would please approach the podium. We have one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Board. Mr. Rogers, my question is, I interpreted this as, I assumed that you were part of the ownership of the group. I fully understand the dynamics of the relationship now. You're a developer, you're representing some commercial businesses. So basically, you do this for a living. This is what you do.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you are a professional out there finding suitable properties. What else could go on this property, or is it this property so unique that it needs to be subdivided? I mean, are there any other options? Because that's what we're looking at. The problem we're having here is this is on your own account, or is this something that's going to get stuck here?
It gets into a highest and best use that works with the economic side of it. And the purchase price, sale price is so high that the only other use that would work is some sort of, in my opinion, multifamily apartments, some sort of dense use. I'm not aware of any single retail use that you could figure out.
And any other use, even if we found another use for the property, with that tree being right in the middle of the property, they probably,
You're-
the next group
they'll-
would come
they'll be
right back.
They'll be right back here.
They'll be right back in here asking for a variance. That's all I needed to ask, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
You just, go ahead.
Let me ask my tree mitigation question then.
Sure.
Can you describe what you're doing to? Sorry, I don't have my mic on. Can you describe what you're doing as far as your planning plan on the property?
I'd have to defer to my landscape architect on that. He just told me that we had replacement plantings to meet the requirements.
So you're not going to the tree fund. You're doing it all on site.
I was going to replant, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Or I could go,
Mr. Jordan, hold on. Yes, sir.
And as a follow-up question to my colleague over there, I thought at the beginning, staff said they had some other ideas what it could be. Can they tell us what those are? Of what could be put there?
So when staff wrote the report, the property is zoned commercial. There's a list of different commercial activities and not limiting to this particular use of the coffee shop. There could be another restaurant that could go there potentially, any other sort of commercial business that did not have to have the subject property subdivided, so to speak. So staff does not look at the other like financial factors and things that go into it. We just look at the land uses of the property. And so land uses of the property, there are several other commercial activities that could go on the parcel.
Thank you.
So one clarification on that, that is unique about this property as well as, well, semi-unique, is that it is not connected to public sewer, so it will be operating on septic system.
Right.
Since it's unincorporated, if it were to want connection to sewer, it would be likely to go into the town of Mount Pleasant. So that's another site thing that would affect the use of the property, because say a restaurant or maybe a intense multifamily situation would not, the site would not support that, or a septic system. So would not.
Okay. Thank you so very much, sir.
thank you.
Okay. Once again, this case is closed to the public. Yeah, I got a little loose with that one.
No, you didn't. I caused it. I'm ready to make a motion if someone else does.
Any other discussion? Questions? You know, I'll have a discussion, a question or a point. I do think they could do something else with the property, but I do believe, and Ms. Workin brought it back to my, not Workin, Ms. Brooks brought it back to my attention that, yeah, she's here in spirit, that it is on septic. So the drainage field's got to go somewhere. And the impact that area and where that lot's located, somebody's going to do something rather than we do something here or it's annexed into the town. And I know the town will swoop right in there and take it on up and do whatever they will and may of it. That they're going to replant and that same amount of trees on that property, that just makes me feel a whole lot better. That's just my thought process on that. With that being said, I need a motion to approve or deny. Okay, Mr. Neal?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to, in regards to case BZA 0124000745, I'm going to make a motion to approve the variance request to remove the 28-inch grand red oak tree for proposed commercial development. I believe we've heard testimony tonight that meets criteria number one. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. We were shown evidence tonight that they're going to lose a significant portion of the property. I guess that's the northern boundary property in a very large pie shape, which is going to tremendously impact this property. We've heard testimony about the septic tank that they're going to have to use, so they're going to have limitations there. Condition number two, I believe it is met. These conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Most of the properties around here are in the town. This is in the overlay district. So I see, for the same reasons as number one, they meet this condition. Number three criteria, because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Again, same as one and two, they're losing a large portion of this property. I don't see why this is a unique piece of property, also in shape. Criteria number four, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. I asked questions earlier about the South Carolina DOT access point. The zoning has already been changed or is in the process of being changed from the residential to the commercial. It's in the overlay district for the town of Mount Pleasant, so it clearly will not be a detriment, so it meets this criteria. Criteria number five, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district, to extend physically a non-conforming use of land, or to change the zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. The fact that the property may be utilized more properly if a zoning variance is granted shall not be considered grounds for granting a zoning variance. This is actually, we heard testimony that this will actually take the non-conforming and turning it into conforming because of the overlay district. So we actually prove that we're meeting that criteria. Criteria number six, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. I see that it meets this criteria now. Because of the limits that are put on this property, because of the septic tank field not being able to have normal sewer, there are limitations on this property that are beyond the applicant's actions. I was confused at that at first with the subdivision, but I feel that it meets this criteria now. Number seven criteria, granting the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of this ordinance. It falls right in line just as number five because of the overlay district for the town of Mount Pleasant. This is a commercial zone that's gone from residential, that is transitioning to commercial in this whole area. So I wholeheartedly believe it meets that criteria. Are there staff comments on this one?
Two.
So I would also include in my motion to include both staff comments for this submittal to be included.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, Mr. Nelson is properly moved in a second. Any questions? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Congratulations, sir. Your application has been approved. Within 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff letting you know the next steps in the process. And the Love family, congratulations. All righty. Our next case. Will be done by Mr. Joshua Downing. Case 0124004, 00746.
So the applicant and property owner, Robert E. Bennett Jr., represented by Mike Pintry of Aquatic Pool, is requesting a variance to reduce the required 50-foot OCRM critical line setback by 15 feet to 35 feet at the closest point for a proposed swimming pool at 3948 Giff Boulevard, TMS number 249010013 on Johns Island in Charleston County. The subject property and properties to the north, south, and east are located in the agricultural residential AGR zoning district. The property to the west is undevelopable marsh and wetlands. The subject property contains a 0.5 acre of highland and a 0.0013 acres of critical area. There is a single-family residence that was constructed in 1995 per Charleston County records, and the property also contains a dock with a boat lift. The applicant's letter of intent explains, we're asking for a 15-foot variance for a critical line to construct a small rectangular swimming pool with a 29 length with 12 feet, 29 in length and 12 feet in width, with directly behind the home. I am 64 years old, recently diagnosed with myasthenia gravis and disease that affects the muscles, and the doctors recommend water exercise. So a little history on the GIF Boulevard OCRM critical lines with swimming pools. So Charleston County adopted the required setbacks and buffers from the OCRM critical line in 2001. A few properties along GIF Boulevard have pools in the rear of the parcel along the OCRM critical line. So the following addresses and TMS numbers. 3960 GIF Boulevard, TMS number 24901000009 was constructed prior to 2001 and did not require a variance at the time of construction. Address 3956 GIF Boulevard, TMS number 24901000011 received a variance, BZA case 0121000450 for a swimming pool in 2021, reducing the OCRM critical line by 8 feet to 42 feet. And the pool at 3928 GIF Boulevard, TMS number 24901000018 was installed in 2002 and met the requirements and setbacks. So staff conducted a site visit on February the 14th. So that is the subject property, the aerial view of the subject property, and the zoomed out aerial view of the subject property. So staff again conducted its site visit on February the 14th. So that is some pictures of the subject property. And it's kind of hard to tell on the pictures that are here, but they are stakes in the ground where the pool is going. Those should be on your iPads. That is a better picture of it, but again, those should be in your iPad packets. GIF Boulevard, the survey of the property. And here's the site plan from Aquatic Pools. The recorded plat. The final plat. So as far as the criteria are concerned, staff believes that it may meet criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, it meets criteria 5, and it may meet criteria 6 and 7. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 0124000746, a variance request to reduce the required 50-foot OCRM critical line setback by 15 feet to 35 feet at the closest point for a proposed swimming pool at 3948 GIF Boulevard, TMS number 24901000013 on Johns Island in Charleston County, based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event that the board decides to approve this application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. Prior to commencing construction, a silt fence shall be installed along the critical line, and the silt fence shall remain and be maintained for the duration of construction. The required 35-foot OCRM critical line buffer shall be maintained pursuant to Charleston County Zoning and Land Regulation Ordinance, Section 4.24.7. The applicant shall coordinate with Public Works Stormwater Division to address the stormwater mitigation measures such as the use of rain barrels, rain gardens to reduce the flow of stormwater into the marsh, and documentation of approval measures shall be submitted as part of the zoning permit application, and the encroachment area shall be limited to the footprint shown on the submitted site plan. Any questions?
I don't think so at this time, sir.
That never happens, so I'm grateful. Spoke too soon.
Yeah, you spoke too soon. Mr. Neal, excuse me.
What, Mr. Downey, what is the setback on the left side of the plat? If you can go to the plat that has the pool rendering, there you go, site plan. If they were to move the pool down left, how far could they move it and without having a variance for the side setback? Because it looks like the OCRM, the way that this lot is configured, the 50-foot setback starts going further away.
It would be 15 feet from each side. So the setbacks in AGR are 50 from the front, 15 from each side, and in this case, with a OCRM critical line, it needs to be 50 from the rear. So it would be 15 feet from the side setback.
Okay, well, I'll save my question for the pool designer here very shortly then. Thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Nelson?
But to clarify that, the blue line shown is the 50-foot setback, right? And the red is the...
Oh, the red's the 35?
The red's the buffer.
The red is the
blue
35-foot
50.
OCRM critical line buffer. That's correct.
Right. So it doesn't matter if you shift it either way, it's going to require a variance.
Yep, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir. Is the applicant present? Very good. Please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve this application.
A representative for the applicant, Mike Petrini with Aquatica Pools and Spas, 7389 Industry Drive, North Charleston, 29418. As it was stated earlier, one of the biggest reasons why, motivating factors, when I first sat down with the Bennetts for the pool was his recent diagnosis of his medical condition, which I will spare you trying to pronounce it. But from what the doctor said, that a therapeutic regimen that is adequated through aquatics would help benefit him long-term wise for his medical condition. Secondary, one of the things that was not mentioned in this email, but I believe was part of the application, is that he does have a 20-year-old autistic son. And again, therapeutic remedies for autism has been aquatic or swimming-based therapies as well. So those aside, anything other than the location of where we design the pool would require a variance anyway and not be able to fully utilize the allotment of his property in the back. Had OCRMs been indicated back in 1995, probably the builder would have moved the house 20 feet further closer to the driveway or to the road, and we would not be in the situation that we are now. However, we live in 2024, and we've established OCRMs now for almost 23 years. Of such, we're in the situation and where we are today. As part of the plan that we have indicated, we have proposed a rain garden of sorts that are on the perimeter of the pool there. If you are looking at the site plan that I had provided for you, you can see in at least some plant bed areas along the front portion of the deck where we have existing plant beds and then extended them a little bit more, albeit the plants are not foreboding to a rain garden, but those can be quickly amended as needed. And then again, on the back side, closer to the marsh, we have plant beds that are there as well, indicated by your drainage arrows, which would be offsetting the water runnage into those plant beds and not directly into the OCRM line. At the end of the day, I think our total square footage for this pool and hardscape area, is 688 square feet, which in most municipalities is well under the allotment for any sort of a need, especially in like Olive Palms or Mount Pleasant, for any other sort of mitigation as far as water drainage goes. Overall lot coverage, we're still well under our impermeable space with that as well.
Okay. And you felt that this is the best place to put it?
Yes. So we do have some restrictions. Obviously, there's HOA restrictions. Most instances, the profile of the house the pool needs to be within the confines of the house. And most of that is fairly aesthetic. No one wants to have to see people in the pool from the streets and whatnot. So having it in the house where it is currently located is in its best spot. We kept in mind knowing that we would potentially need a variance, so having it 5 feet off of the steps is probably a little bit closer than I would be more comfortable with, especially with a condition that Mr. Bennett has. As he ages, will be a little bit more unsure-footed. But anything closer than that, I would feel would be a drowning risk if someone were to stumble and fall into the pool.
So I'm thinking just like my counterpart over here, if that was moved over to the right, maybe 5 feet and butted up to
to the deck, it couldn't be done that way?
So as far as construction-wise, I need at least a 3 feet barrier between, it's a 1-for-1. For every depth that I have to go, I need 1 foot of distance away from it. So if we were just doing a 3-foot depth pool, I could be up to 3 feet from the footers of the deck. Anything beyond that, I would have to have a little bit more. And that's just to ensure that there's no cave-ins and the foundation is not falling into a hole that we were creating.
What's the deck made out of?
The deck would be a assault void concrete.
No, the current deck.
The current deck is wood. And as you go further down the house towards the driveway, that's the, I believe, the bedroom.
Okay. Mr. Jordan?
I have 2 questions. Number one, are there any other pools in that area close by?
Absolutely. I believe one was stated in reference that was passed by variance last year for 8 foot. And then there's 2 houses down that was built in 2001 that is grossly encroaching on the OCRM, 9 feet off of the OCRM.
And question number 2, if the pool's going to be within 5 foot of the house, you're going to be able to put a fence around it?
Absolutely. I have to have a fence around the pool.
Well, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you so very much for your testimony.
My pleasure.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. The case is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any questions? Any other additional questions of staff?
I have one for staff.
Yes, sir. Mr. Neal.
Do we know when or do we recollect when OCRM changed their guidelines from 35 feet? Didn't they go from 25 to 50 or 35 to 50?
So the OCRM critical line setback is 50 feet. The OCRM critical line buffer is 35 feet.
Didn't it change? It's been.
So it's always, from my understanding, AGR has always been 50 feet for the critical line and 35 feet from the buffer in AGR. Different zoning districts have different requirements. So I think in R4 it's 25?
It's 35 feet, 15.
35 feet in.
Yeah. And the county actually administers these regulations. It's not through OCRM. It's a local ordinance to, protect the
Right.
wetlands and stuff. So,
But
but
those
in the
haven't
agricultural area outside of the urban growth boundary, you'll typically see a 50-foot setback and a 35-foot buffer. And in the urban area, you'll see more, it's typically a 35-foot buffer with a 35-foot setback with a 15-foot buffer.
15-foot buffer. That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Neal, are you asking what regulations were in place for the county in 1995 when the house was constructed?
Or to compare it to the other properties that got their variances? I'm just trying to understand, are we stepping out on the limb here? I mean, I don't really have a problem with any of this. I'm just trying to see fair and trying to get over, is this number 6? Is this their own making?
Do you guys have any idea?
In our staff report, again, we included that the property at 3960 Gift Boulevard was constructed prior to 2001 and did not have an OCRM critical line setback at the time. The one at 3950 Gift Boulevard, the variance request was for the setback to be reduced by 8 feet to 42 feet. And the one at 3928 Gift Boulevard was constructed in 2002. And when I pulled the site plan, it met the required setbacks at the time, which was 50 feet.
And did we get any letters of opposition for this?
We did not.
We want their pools too.
Any other discussion?
You may not know this one, but they would still need, I know Gift is under a HOA, they would still need approval from the homeowners association.
Correct. So they have a ARB that they would have to have an approval for.
Okay. don't have anything else.
Anything else on that end? All right. Board members, I need a motion to either approve or deny this case. Anyone want to try to take a stab at it?
I'll
Miss-
take it.
Okay. Lady has the floor.
In the matter of BZA case 0124000764, I make a motion that we approve this case. One, I think there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. Number two, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Number three, because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Number four, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or the public good, and character of the zoning district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Number five, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district to extend physically a non-conforming use of land or to change the zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. The fact that the property may be utilized more profitably should a variance be granted may not be considered grounds for a variance. Number six, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. I do think that they built that house so far back, they're already so close to the line. Number seven, granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of the ordinance. And also, as part of this approval, we should include the 4 recommendations by staff.
Okay. We have a motion that is properly moved. Do we have a second? All right. Thank you. We have a motion that is properly moved and second. Questions? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye? Aye. It is unanimous. Thank you. Very good. Congratulations, sir. Within 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff letting you know the next steps in the process. Please relay to your clients that the application has been approved, unless that's the applicant. No. Thank you. Good night. All right. Our last case for tonight. We got two more. God, I'm...
Two more. I'll make this one as quick as possible, Mr.
We've just been here since 3 o'clock today. That's all.
That's all.
2:30. That's
just
it.
3 o'clock. All right. So the applicant and property owner, Linda M. Harrison, is requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district at 2324 Eagle Drive, TMS number 47505000028 in the north area of Charleston County. The subject property and all surrounding properties are located in the low-density R4 zoning district. The property contains a single-family residence that was constructed in 1956 per Charleston County records. The applicant would like to rent out 2 bedrooms and has shown 4 parking spaces on the site plan. All right, so that is the rules and regulations in the zoning and land regulations ordinance as it relates to short-term rentals. That is the subject property, the 300-foot radius map of the subject property, an aerial view, and a zoomed-out aerial view of the subject property. Staff conducted its site visit on February the 14th. That is the single-family residence along with the parking. Some of the surrounding properties in the neighborhood. Eagle Drive. The site plan that was shown. The tenant notice showing the evacuation routes in case of an emergency, along with the emergency contact. The plat. So staff believe that all 3 of the criteria for this application may have been met. And the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 01 24-00747, a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district at 2324 Eagle Drive, TMS number 475-0500-082 in the north area of Charleston County, based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event that the board decides to approve this application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. Prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the limited site plan review process. The use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. The property shall not be used for any more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year, and the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that the tenants comply with the Charleston County noise ordinance. Staff did receive one letter in support of this application. Any questions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Neal.
Are there any properties in the surrounding area that have been approved?
There are not.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is the applicant present? Please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record. Say again? Oh.
Were you sworn in?
So,
Were
the
you
question
sworn
is,
in?
were you sworn in? No. Okay.
Good point.
So at this time, we have to take an oath. So everything that you say tonight, you are under oath, and contempt of court if you give false information orally or in writing, okay? Mr. Downing will administer the oath.
Please raise your right hand and say, I do. I promise to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I do.
Sir, are you going to speak? Then if you would, please have a seat. I greatly appreciate it. So please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve this application.
My name is Lindia Marie Harrison. I live at 4829 Law Boulevard, Somerville, South Carolina, 29485.
Okay.
And I believe this application should be approved because this property is already established. It doesn't affect the traffic in that area. And I think I've met all the criteria that was presented to me in order to do a short-term rental in this area.
That was quick. Are you currently renting the house, Ms. Harrison?
My son lives there until I'm able to get permit to do the rentals.
Okay. Okay. All right. Mr. Neal?
Yes, thank you. So you own the house, your son lives there, is a renter or whatever, he taking care of the house for you, obviously.
Mhm.
Why do you need, two-part question, why do you need it to be the extended home rental instead of just the normal short-term rental property? And I think I saw where you're hiring a company to manage the rentals or something like that? Or are you going to be the contact, or is he going to be the contact?
I am the contact. Evolve is the company that will manage the rental. They already manage one of my rental. And basically what they do is make sure I have tenants. They're the one who vet all the tenants that rent my property.
And why do you need it? Is he going to continue to live there, but you're just going to rent out a couple of rooms? Is that what it is?
No, sir. He
Mr.
will-
Neal, let me
he will-
answer that question, if I could, Ms. Harrison. She is the property owner. In order for her to rent this house, she does not meet the owner occupancy requirement. And so in this zoning district, she would have to do the extended home rental, which is the second option, because she does not meet the owner occupancy requirement. Although her son lives on the house, he's not the property owner. She is.
That squares up that. So the son will still live there, and he's not going to be involved in the management?
He will not. He will no longer live there. He's
okay.
living there because his process was taking so long. We didn't want the house just sitting there. So he's only there until I get permission to rent it.
Right, makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Downing. Yes. Yes, sir.
Ms. Harrison, thank you for coming for your testimony. It was noted earlier that this is the first rental of this type in this neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
And there may be some people in the area who are concerned about this becoming a rental property. And you live in Somerville. How are you going to assure that your neighbors will not be affected by whoever you have rent this property?
Well, I have cameras on the doors, and I have cameras in the backyard. And like with my other property, I could check in anytime to see what's going on the outside of the property. And it'll alert me if anything's going on.
Okay. Do you know the next door neighbors? Have you met the people who own property on either side of the home?
My husband he's the social person here.
Okay. So they have your contact information in case that they have a problem?
I believe one person has his information concerning the neighbors. Yeah, they do not have my information.
But can you make sure that they have contact, your husband has given them information so they can contact you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. I think that's important especially if you're going to be first in the neighborhood to do this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Jordan?
Question. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just a question for the staff. There were no letters received in opposition, were there?
None in opposition, one in support.
None. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jordan?
Okay, so now we're in my neck of the woods. And I will remind my colleagues that she may be the first one, but every other one in this county, they had to be a first one. So I don't see really how that one point could be a reason to be against it. But ma'am, you know where Whipper Barony is?
Sir,
You know where Whipper Barony is in North Charleston?
I do.
I live there.
No.
Right across the street is a short-term rental. So if it's okay for Whipper Barony, which I have to say is in the city, then I don't see much difference in Eagle Landing. So I'm still sitting here trying to think which way to go, but I ain't heard anything yet that we go by the rules that I think should prevent you from doing this. So that's why I want to speak up and let you know that I'm from North Charleston, and I know there's short-term rentals all over the place, including in front of my house. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir, Mr. Neal.
I just have one follow-up. I'm reading the public letter of support for Ms. Harrison. I lost my train of thought on how. Your neighbors. Have you mentioned to your neighbors, the neighbors of this house, are they in support of this? Or have you had any conversations with them?
I know my husband has spoken to one neighbor that's across the street about it.
Were okay? They were in support? They
He
were
was
not?
fine. Yeah,
Okay, so you hadn't talked to either one of the other neighbors?
we haven't.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison, for your testimony.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. Case closed to the public. Board members, do we have any questions of staff? Any discussion? Therefore, I need a motion to approve or deny this case.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve this case. No matter BZA 0124000747, I would like to make a motion that we approve this request, that one, it is compatible with the existing uses in the vicinity and will not adversely affect the general welfare or character of the immediate community. The applicant has provided sufficient testimony, both written and orally, that indicates the measures they'll take to make sure the welfare of the community is not harmed. In criterion 2, adequate provision is made and or exists for such items as setback buffering to protect properties from adverse influences for the proposed STRP use between the use of the Evolve group and the plans provided by the applicant. We meet that criterion. And criterion 3, that that this request complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of the ordinance, including but not limited to any use conditions, zoning district standards, and applicable STRP site plan review requirements of this ordinance. With the applicant going through the proper processes, we meet that criterion. In making this motion, would add all 4 of the conditions recommended by staff.
Thank
That
you,
is
sir.
my motion.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. I heard you loud and clear. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Congratulations, Ms. Harrison. Your application has been approved. Within 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff letting you know the next steps in the process. Once again, congratulations and good night.
I think it's your son that's going to be saying that.
Son's homeless.
His son's homeless. No, his son's going to move in with mom and daddy again. All right. Let's get this last one on the road.
Now this is the last case. Mr. Ray, I'm going to read really, really slow so I can keep everybody here long. Okay. All right. So the BZA case 0124-004-748. The applicant and property owner, Mary Elaine Williams, is requesting a variance to remove a 37-inch diameter breast height DBH grand live oak tree adjacent to a single-family residence at 2628 Rifle Range Road, TMS number 578-0000063 in the east area of Charleston County. The subject property and adjacent properties to the north and west are located in the Mount Pleasant Overlay Zoning District in the Sweetgrass Basket Stand Special Consideration Area. The property to the southwest is located in the town of Mount Pleasant's jurisdiction, and the property to the southeast is located in the Agriculture Preservation AG-10 zoning district. Properties to the east are located in the Special Management S3 zoning district. The 1 acre property contains an existing 1960 single-family home. The property contains 6 grand trees, and the survey provided that was completed in 2003, and the 37-inch grand tree in question is 30 inches live oak closest to the Rifle Range Road on the survey. For the sake of time, I will not read what the applicant stated the entirety of their application, but from our staff's understanding, the roots and the tree are growing almost into the house. So section 9.2.5 of tree removal, that is the Mount Pleasant Overlay Zoning District and the Sweetgrass Basket Stand Special Consideration Area. That is the subject property. The 300-foot radius map of the subject property and the aerial view of the subject property. A zoomed out aerial view of the subject property. So staff did conduct its site visit on February the 14th. So here are some of the pictures of the grand tree to be removed. And some other pictures of the subject property. Rifle Range Road. And here are some of the photos provided by the applicant. The site plan and the plat. So for the staff conditions, staff believes that criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7 may have been met, and it meets criteria 5. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 0124-00748, a variance to remove a 37-inch DBH grand oak tree, live oak tree adjacent to an existing single-family residence at 2628 Rifle Range Road, TMS number 578-00000063 in the east area of Charleston County, based on the BZA finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event that the board decides to approve the application, staff does have one criteria recommendation, and that's prior to the zoning permit approval, the 37-inch DBH Grand Live Oak Tree, the applicant and property owner shall plant a 5-inch caliber canopy tree. Any questions of staff?
Yeah, so why just 5?
Mr. Foster can answer that question better.
That property is congested as it is with very large grand trees. The property survey that we got is from 2000, and although it isn't showing all the trees on there, because now they've grown since the last 24 years, there's nowhere to really plant that many trees at. Speaking with Ms. Williams, her insurance company will not cover her house because of the increased proximity. She loves the tree from talking with her. But to have a house with a tree, I think that we give a relaxation of the mitigation for her sake, because she wants the tree, wants the house too, but there's nowhere to plant many mitigation trees out on the property because she has many trees as it is.
Mr. Nelson?
I'll let Mr. Neal go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I was going. I mean, I want to hear the testimony, but I mean, we've also had many applications that have come before us. They had to remove the tree because they're going to be making money off a commercial endeavor. This is going to be an expensive tree to take down, and I was wondering if the mitigation factors, if she has not applied for the mitigation factors to be reduced, can we do that as part of our motion and stuff? But it sounds like the recommendation is just for one tree, and would that waive the rest of the inch requirements where she would not have to pay into the bank?
So again, that is a staff recommendation.
Right.
The board does not have to, in the motion, does not have to grant the recommendation.
Yeah.
They can approve without the recommendation.
Okay.
Let's get the applicant up.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Williams, and I live at 596 Oak Park Drive in Mount Pleasant, 29464. And I am requesting, I probably should read this because I'm really nervous, so I'm just going to read this if that's okay. Huh? Or just talk? So I have this oak tree on this house, next to this house, and it's about 38 inches away from my house. I can do this. And this house is, it was an old grocery store in 1960, I believe it was built. We bought it back about 20 years ago. And I got a notice. I got divorced. And the month after I got divorced, I get this notice from my insurance company saying, you have to have all of your tree overhang removed or we're not going to cover you. So that is why I'm here. I did reach out to Kyle. I expressed to him I needed him to come help me. I don't know how to do all this stuff. And I said, listen, I've got this tree. I got my insurance. I got to have insurance on my home. So he came out and he's like, listen, I cannot, you got more than 25% of this tree you need removed. I can't give you that okay. You've got to go before the board. So I'm here today saying, listen, I got 8 oak trees on this property. It is beautiful. It is the most beautiful property in Mount Pleasant. I'm so thankful to have it. But I can't have this tree next to my house. And I'm worried if we take off more than the 25%, it's already leaning this way. And I'm like, again, arm width apart. And I've had a friend of mine, a landscape company, come out and I'm trying to freshen it up. I haven't been able to do anything to this house because I didn't live in it. My mother-in-law did, so now she doesn't. So I'm trying to freshen it up and make it look like I would like it to look. And so we actually, a friend of mine said, Rellen's my nickname. He goes, you have got roots all up underneath this house and it's overgrown up into where it should not be. And he goes, I don't know how your foundation isn't totally messed up. So with those concerns, and if we're able to cut more than what my requirements are for my insurance company, it's very worrisome that if a storm hits, that's going to pull my whole house up. So it's really not that I want to get rid of a tree. It's really, I'm kind of got my arms tied behind my back. I have no choice to come before y'all and say, hey guys, help me. Because I asked Kyle, I said, Guy, you need to help me. I don't know what to do. So this is where I stand today, just, requesting that, possibly it can be removed so that I can stay in that house without the foundation coming up once we remove it to meet the requirements of my insurance company. Because that's kind of what I have to do, I think.
Thank you. Mr. Neal.
Two quick questions. Are you going to live in the house afterwards, or are you going to rent it? Just curious.
So this is on, I'm not going to live there for a year for reasons.
I was just curious if you're turning rental property. Have you looked at any other insurance other than the State Farm policy? Is it State Farm? Sometimes State Farms won't do insurance for reasons. There are other carriers out there that I don't know if they would do it. Have you looked into that?
I have not. I've been with State Farm Insurance my entire life. So has my family. We've all been here all of our lives. So we have a loyalty with them, I should say. But and I haven't, to be honest with you. I just haven't.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Wow.
Just
thanks.
on a personal note, I had a friend who had a tree. She was battling with her HOA for one of those trees too close to her place, and it did damage her foundation.
All right. Does anyone else want to speak in favor of this application? Yes. Please come to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
I am next door. My name is Jim Curd. I live at 2642 Rifle Range Road, which is right next door to this property. We've been neighbors with Mary Ann and her family, Mary Ellen and her family for a long time. And she's a very straight up, very honest person, and she raised some straight up honest kids. And they're nice and quiet. They make great neighbors, and they have a beautiful yard. And I saw the tree, and I agree with her. We'd love to keep the tree. It'd be fantastic, but can't imagine a way to keep the tree and not possibly incur damage on the house. And because State Farm wants 25% cut away, or actually more than that, then it looks like the tree would lean over and the roots would pull up from underneath the slab and tear things up if the situation came out that way. And I don't know how to fix it unless she was able to cut away the front of the house and expand somewhere else, and that would probably cost more than moving a tree. And as mentioned here before, there's lots of trees on the property. It looks gorgeous. It might be redundant, but this morning I took some pictures myself. Just to illustrate the intent of the pictures I took this morning was to illustrate how much foliage covers the roof. And I'm thinking, as he's illustrated before, it's something like 27 or 30%. Once you do that on one side, if you don't do it on the other side, you have a good chance of the tree falling over in a high wind. And the root structure does appear to be going below the slab. And as she was saying, it's a 1960s house. It's about the same time that our back end of our home was built. About the same time, just slab and stick and cinder block and such. It's miracles that they're still there. Everything's going along fine, but this, I don't know if we can survive, if the house would survive this change if we trimmed out just that portion over the roof.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We're kind of out of time right this moment. Do we have any questions for this young man? Okay. Thank you so very much for your testimony. We have your pictures here. Anyone else? There's only one other person here. Do you want to say anything, please, ma'am?
Oh, no.
No? Okay. Okay.
I just want to thank you for the young man comment.
Okay. You're quite welcome, sir.
Encourage you to get your eyes checked.
It was my heart that probably needed checked. Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. This case is closed to the public. Board members, any questions of staff? Any discussion? Yes, sir, Mr.
I had one comment. I want to make sure that, as it relates to mitigation, that we're feeding everybody out of the, I'm going to vote in.
Out the same spoon?
in favor,
With the
but
same
we
spoon?
Feed everybody out of the same spoon of justice regarding mitigation. That's the only concern I have.
I will tell you, Mr. Truslow, I've been on this board for too long. And
because I've been on it just as long.
yeah, well, some of us. And there was a former member, quite famous young man, who I won't mention his name. He absolutely hated, and I do mean hated, loathed, the tree bank. And so there are cases in the history of my tenure here where there was no mitigation. Is that accurate?
According to Mr. Goldstein.
Mr. Unknown. So you have a lot of leeway.
All right.
So to follow up, so the relief is based on the commissioners, what they feel they want to do. Case by case basis, of course.
Correct.
Good to know.
Can I have a motion to approve or deny?
I make a motion to approve.
Let 'em go.
Well, you know, I saw 3 hands go up one time, so y'all ballot out.
I was pointing. I was not.
I'll get out of the way.
Ball's in your court, sir.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation that we approve this variance request.
Turn your mic on.
Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation that we approve this variance request. I believe that there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to this property. The tree overhangs the house. The applicant has been informed by our insurance company that they will not continue to insure unless the tree is substantially cut back, which, if so, would endanger the house from another angle if there was a windstorm and perhaps damage the foundation. The conditions do not apply to other property in the vicinity. It's unique to this property because of the proximity to the house. And necessarily prohibits and restricts the usage of the property. I think it's been clear from testimony that perhaps the house is not usable, certainly if it can't get insurance. So I think it meets that criteria. The variance will not be a detriment to the adjacent property or the public good. We've heard testimony and we've seen photographs of there are many trees on the property already. So that the loss of this tree, while tragic in the view of this board in terms of trees generally in our county, will not affect the overall public good for that street. It will not establish a use not permitted in the zoning district or extend nonconforming use or change zoning boundaries. And the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's actions, and it will not substantially conflict the comprehensive plan. And I recommend that this be approved without any conditions and no need to have mitigation of the tree.
There's no conditions.
So you're saying not even the five
So you-
foot?
Not even the 5 foot.
I would second.
5-inch.
5-inch tree.
Okay, so we have a motion that's properly moved and seconded.
I have a question.
Question.
I didn't hear that last part y'all said, but now,
So what he did, he removed the conditions of the 5 caliber inch tree. So there would be no tree planted on.
And the reason I did that is because the property already has substantial numbers of grand
It would
trees.
be in the applicant's discretion as to
what I'm asking is what you brought up earlier, because of this situation, that would any financial help be given to them for this?
Well, he's
Whatever
doing
fees.
that. He's reducing it to nothing.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Okay. So we've, yes, sir.
I just
Mr.
have a
Truslow.
quick.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead.
My question is, I mean, I'll support the motion either way, but staff recommended that they do the 5 inches of caliper, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Downey?
5 inches, yes, sir.
And that's a tremendous drop from the 38 inches. So I wouldn't give them 0. I think the 38 to 5 is fine, but I would go with the majority. I think taking it completely away is what's not asked for, and I think it would be fine with 5. But I will support a motion. However, if you want to take an amendment to your motion, or if you want to restate your motion.
So the question's been called.
Okay.
You have any discussion? Any more discussion?
I would make a motion to amend his
Well,
motion.
we got one already on the floor. I got to bring that through. Unless he's willing to amend his motion before we bring it.
We could have to vote to make it on the amendment, couldn't we?
I think I'll just stand with my motion as it is. at this
And
point.
you stand with your
Stand with
second?
my
Okay.
second.
So all those in favor of the motion and the second that's currently on the floor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Make sure they understand what the motion is.
Wait,
Okay.
just want to make sure, clarify, does that mean that you're not putting any stipulation in?
The-
We've been talking about the financial end?
The current motion is to approve without any mitigation.
Okay,
Without planting the 5 inches in caliber.
okay.
We clear? I'll start again. All those in favor of the motion at hand, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. Any opposed? 1. It carries. Thank you so very much. Your application has been approved, and within 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff letting you know the next steps in the process. Thank you.
I ran into Tommy a couple times.
And I hope this is the beginning of some good news in your life.
I'll give her that. So before we get out of here, board members, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve you another year as chairperson. I don't take it lightly. I do hold it in the highest regard. And hopefully, everything will work out well again for another year. That would include staff as well. Mr. Downey, do you have anything else for this august body?
Yes, so our next scheduled meeting will be April the 1st, April Fool's Day, at 5 o'clock, and the start time was 5 o'clock.
10
We have
cases.
10 new business cases.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Can I get a second Valentine's Day?
What's that?